Have they all been reborn and become firefighters again? Introduction. Soldier, system, reborn. Of course it's about making money. Fang Huai returned home and found that the camouflage bags from the armed forces had been collected. The account has been closed at the beginning, what should we do? A few years later. Fang Huai, who was on vacation, received a call and quickly arrived at the scene of the fire. He took off Richard Miller from his wrist and handed it to the fighter. Have I brought my combat uniform? The team member smiled and said, Captain, even if I'm not wearing my own combat uniform, I can't do without you. You are the guarantee of life. In an interview, Fang Huai pointed to a large military merit badge on his chest. Every military merit medal represents my progress. The reporter nodded and said, I understand your excitement when you received the award, and I have also served in the military. Fang Huai smiled and shook his head, no, you really don't understand. Chapter 1 Rebirth. Account cancelled. You are listening at novel full.audio. The sky is dim and the earth is dark. Fang Huai. The long table in front of me and a few recruiters seem to have changed their appearance. Ah, it's me. Fang Huai felt a bit dazed. It seems like I had a heart attack just now, the pain was unbearable, and I fainted for a moment. At a young age of over 30, I actually got a heart attack, really. Hey, if I don't stay up late in the future, I won't be able to wait until I get bald. What position do you want to apply for? I would like to apply for the position of Enterprise Service Product Manager at your company. The four people in front of me have question marks on their faces. Fang Huai has many years of job-seeking experience in the workplace, and he feels that the half-bald head on the left side in the middle wants him to go out. The woman on the right quickly picked up a page of information in front of her, flipped it over, looked at it twice, and then looked up with a skeptical expression. At present, our products do not require. The position we are recruiting today is for technical talents facing factories under the company. Sure enough, it's another company that sells rat meat with a sheep's head hanging on it. As for hiring a product manager, it's all about hiring people to screw screws. Fang Huai smiled and decided to struggle again. My work experience mainly focuses on understanding and characterizing user needs, and I also have a certain understanding of the traffic flow model of network content service providers. The era of Web 3.0 is approaching, and information blockchain is a major trend. I have some insights in focusing more on users' personal services and experiences. Today, I also brought a PPT. Sorry, next person. There is no master left here. Fang Huai put his hands in his pockets, put away his humble attitude just now, and prepared for the next one. I found it looks a bit familiar. Phone, slide cover. Nokia, 5200. The four people in the inner room looked at the young man holding his phone and feeling lost outside the transparent glass wall, with a hint of contempt on their faces. Young people nowadays sit on the ground and want to ascend to heaven, but when they become human, they still want to become immortals. There's a bit more. The woman's expression on her face was a bit indescribable, pointing to her head. He also wants to create a personal user experience. If we let him become a salesperson, how many lawsuits will we have to face in a year? 20 minutes later, Fang Huai walked out from the door of Nose Technology Company, Limited, with a cigarette in his mouth, murmuring incessantly. I'm Nima, 2007. 3 cigarettes went down, and Fang Huai suddenly turned back. Come out. I saw you. He felt that he must have been messed up. In Truman's world, there was a crew that secretly filmed his life. He can't think of any reason besides being played with. But it's not Guangzhou in front of us, but Chongqing. The big lucky dolls holding hands on the square were dismantled more than 10 years ago. I touched my pocket again. Mobile phone, wallet, key, cigarette, lighter. These few things seem to be his only guidance now. Fortunately, the beginning was not a bowl. Rebirth, rebirth. Fang Huai's breathing began to be rapid. Go home first and take a look. In the taxi, Fang Huai summarized his past life in a nostalgic way. His life has probably been in crisis since his youth. He is a second-generation chef, and not a steak medium-rare chef. He is a stir-fried pork loin chef priced at 18 yuan per plate. After retiring from the fire department at the age of 24, I went to a poorly performing public institution. I couldn't bear the PUA from my superiors anymore, so I resigned and moved to Guangzhou, where I gradually changed jobs for more than 10 times. There is no deposit, but the bank has deposited over 100,000 yuan with him. When I was extremely poor, I relied on the guitar I learned during my adolescence to pick up girls, and even tried to do the bar singing job for a few days. He was quickly dismissed, and they said he was just playing the number. 360 lines, every line curses its mother. His only definite value is being sold as a piglet in Miaowadi, which is said to be able to sell for 300,000 yuan. However, if he cannot help the boss cheat money, the 35-year-old piglet will not even be able to sell his waste. At present, except for his Guangxi girlfriend who loves to scold him for picking up hair, he doesn't even have a hair in his mouth. Mom Zhangmei left in 15 years and had a car accident. In 2016, her ex-girlfriend Huang Jiaojiao learned that the driver who caused the accident and the insurance company had compensated his family 150,000 yuan. She asked him to borrow 180,000 yuan to pay off the debt of the plastic surgery hospital. She said it's okay to give as a dowry. 80.8 thousand yuan, not expensive, just a cake of old banzhang. I started dating since I was a student, and he didn't have the money to buy a house or a car. That's all I asked for. The end of makeup is bare makeup, and the end of dowry is famine. Huang Jiaojiao took the money and left quickly, leaving a message. My friend said that following you is also a way to make a living. It's better to go to Shanghai while you're young and earn more money. Don't look for me, wait for me for 3 years. When I come back, I'll marry you. I also wrote him an IOU without specifying the repayment date. Several years later, Fang Huai found out that the loan only had a 3-year prosecution period, during which he did not claim repayment, so it was gone. Dad didn't scold him about this. He said he had been with you for so many years, so just give it to him. But last year, my dad also left, and it was the same illness as many people. Anesthesia, intubation, blood transfusion, and medication also led to the aggravation of kidney disease and loss of function. The cost of bedside dialysis in ICU was very high. It took more than 10 days to rescue before leaving. Every morning, thousands of people were handed in from the hospital's official account, and the balance was bottomed out at night. He also called Huang Jiaojiao and wanted her to repay some money, even if it was borrowed from him. Unable to get through, send WeChat, no reply. Look at her social media. Hyaluronic acid face, silicone breast, Bulgari hotel, stockings from the Parisian family. After bearing all the debts he could bear, he persisted until the doctor shook his head and showed kindness, telling him that there was little hope of waking up. If he persisted, his wealth and life would be in vain. At that time, he knew for the first time that removing the tube would make walking very painful. He had to stop taking the medication to maintain vital signs and wait until he left before removing it. People would walk more comfortably. Later on, for a long time, I became numb. Until 30.4, I never had the thought of getting married, even for a moment. Handsome guy, the wild ditch is here. After 16 years of going back, my family still looked poor and destitute, but it was a bit new. Old brick structure, old and dilapidated without property rights, the house still has a sunny side, not to mention becoming wealthy, it is difficult to raise a wealthy tree. There is no one at home. When Fang Huai entered the room, the first thing he saw was a camouflage bag. After his mother Duzi, the account was really closed, and the Armed Forces Department brought back everything. Rebirth once, before making any money, serve as a soldier for 2 years. The main mission is about to be triggered. Lying trough. Do you still have a system? Fang Huai pulled up the subtitles in front of him, only to find that he couldn't find them at all. This elusive touch gave him an intuition that his life was safe. Bang! Someone closed the door. Fang Huai, it's 9:30 and you're still dawdling. Pack up your things quickly, and your dad will send you to the Armed Forces Department right away. Fang Huai felt a bit uneasy when he heard his mother's voice coming from the door. The slightly unreal text reappeared in front of me. Main task trigger. Go join the army and become a good soldier who rewards society. Fang Huai's mouth twitched. Did you mix up like this in your past life and give back to society? This system has a bit of skin on it. Zhang Mei walked in and a familiar face appeared in front of Fang Huai. Hurry up and eat the dumplings. Your dad cooked them for you in the store. Fang Huai regained his senses and hesitated to speak. The things he lost and regained always make people cautious. The convenience bag she was holding in her hand exuded the scent of Fang Huai finding home just by smelling it. Thousands of households and households, with vastly different flavors. The same bowl of dumplings, but the taste of happiness is so similar. After going out to make dumplings and go home to make noodles, I can finally eat them again. In this world, I will truly care about my parents, and they are still there. Take the convenience bag, open it, and place it on the table. Fang Huai hesitated and said, Mom, what's the date today? He still feels uneasy and wants to verify it. What number? On the 25th. You don't know what date you enlisted. Zhang Mei couldn't understand the surging emotions in Fang Huai's heart, so she gave a habitual education. Which year and date were you born? Fang Huai continued to ask. What are you doing? Just tell me, I need to remember. What if I have to fill out the form? 60 years, November 30th. Do you want me and your father's ID number? I'll copy it to you. The same, really the same world. Fang Huai's eyes are slightly swollen. I couldn't say anything earth-shattering, so I stuffed a dumpling into my mouth and said, Mom, wait for me to earn money and spend it on you in the future. Zhang Mei's voice became slightly softer when she heard something like someone else's child saying it for the first time. As long as you manage yourself well, all the money your father and I earn is reserved for you. Hurry up and finish eating, pack up and leave. Mom, wait a moment, I'll make something. Fang Huai remembered something and quickly rushed into the room, opening the big back hire computer that his parents had bought after repeatedly ensuring good study in 2005 or 2006. He searched for office software on the screen with a mouse. In this life, we can no longer let our parents suffer from poverty. We must take advantage of the clear memories and save some money making plans. Fang Huai. Let's go. What else are you doing? Zhang Mei put down her chopsticks and urged. Wait for me to make a PPT. What T? Go join the army. Well. Your uncle said that gaming consoles are not allowed in the army. PPT. It's not PSP. Fang Huai said helplessly. Yes, he also has an uncle. A firefighter, serving as an official and deputy team leader, treated him well and sacrificed himself in 2008. Not that time. My uncle came back that time, second-class merit. It was a major car accident that occurred later, and the valley where the accident occurred was constantly frozen. First, 11 cars collided in a series, and later rescue vehicles couldn't stop and collided one by one. Uncle's car is in the middle. In the following years, Fang Huai became a complete leader and missed the only opportunity in his life to become a close relative. Later on, he gradually couldn't remember his uncle's appearance. Now, looking back, there were quite a few people who had cared about him from childhood to adulthood. Task. Arrive at the Armed Forces Department within 30 minutes, please host to complete it as soon as possible. Fang Huai was taken aback. He hasn't fully felt the warmth at home yet, so he's about to go on the road. What about the failed task? Like he read those novels, erase them. Task failed, system released, host will return to original time and space. Fang Huai immediately sat up straight and looked left and right. Rebirth. Although there wasn't much to choose from, Fang Huai couldn't help but compare. There is a father, a mother, and an uncle here. There is only one carrying hair over there. And before Rebirth. It seems like angina, sudden death from myocardial infarction, a sudden change in art style. Dad, hurry up. Drive faster. We're going to die. Fang Huai, dressed in loose camouflage and wearing a hat on his shoulders, sat in the back of the van, constantly pulling on his father Fang's open collar, hoping to let him gallop. Without saying a word, Fang Kaiyang shook open the window and took a last sip of the cigarette in his hand at Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com. A spark flew out of the window, sighed deeply, and then turned his head to look at Zhang Mei. This child, no matter how old or young he is, really makes him anxious. If he knows something, he will have to go and read 3 books. Zhang Mei received the signal and patted Huai's hand with some force. There's a car ahead. Do you know it's urgent now? What did you do just now? What else did you do with TNT? The car gave a sudden pause. Fang Kaiyang, who had also served in the military, immediately turned his head in shock and said, TNT. Yao Air, don't take it too hard. Dad sent you to join the military, isn't it? Fang Huai remained silent. That's called PSP. No, PPT. Dad, you have a nice road. The system still has a 12-minute countdown, and he has no mood for joking anymore. What is PPT? A new type of martial arts. PPT is a computer. Something on a computer. It's for work. Office work. When Fang Kaiyang slowed down and turned back, his eyebrows seemed to stick together. Are you playing games now as if you're working? I knew it. I think about your broken computer every day. I'll smash it for you when I go back. The car suddenly accelerated, and Fang Kaiyang, who knew the troops could educate people, was eager to send Fang Huai into that hot melting pot. But there is also a way out. I'm still afraid that this child won't be able to endure hardship, so I didn't send him to the inner guard of the armed police. He was sent to the fire department of the armed police, where there was an uncle taking care of him. At least I can go see him, but I can still use a back door. The soldiers nowadays are not as good as when they were in a large army. In that battle, they took off their clothes to farm, put on their clothes for training, and were not afraid of the sun or the cold in winter. That's what's called a soldier. It's not what Sichuan people call Chiu Ba. Chapter 2. Laozi's Sichuan Road Mountain. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Arriving at the entrance of the Armed Forces Department, there is still a whole minute left. Fang Huai got off the car carrying the camouflage bag issued by the army, and looked at the Armed Forces gate with the August 1st logo on the doorpost, which was just a stone's throw away, feeling much more at ease. 58. The system starts counting down. Mom, what about the food and cigarettes you prepared for me? Fang Huai just saw Zhang Mei carrying big and small bags of things in the car, and the bad habits of procrastination began to spread. Joining the army is okay, but I have to eat a meal to cut off my head, right? At least one can enjoy the warmth brought by their parents on the road. This is not called procrastination, it's called staggered placement. 50. Fang Huai widened his eyes. There wasn't even 5 seconds just now. 45. Zhang Mei got off the car and slowly rubbed her waist. Wait, I'll go get it for you. 40. It's getting faster and faster. Nima, this suspension system is definitely conscious. Just finished cursing in my heart. 20. Fang Huai turned around and started at 100 meters, his heart roaring wildly. Big brother. 15. Uncle. 13, Grandpa. Grandpa. 12.9, 12.8 I'm Nima. Fang Huai's expression relaxed. Jiao system with a decimal point player, like a special elementary school student. How did you run? Fang Huai. Slow down. Zhang Mei shouted anxiously from behind. Fang Huai had already arrived at the door, looked back, hesitated for a moment, whether to wait for his mother to deliver something in. 5 Mom, no more. Fang Huai quickly turned his head and the person in front stopped, squatting down to tie his shoelaces. 3, with a special period, Fang Huai's cold hair stood up. The number 3 is the most wonderful. The most impressive mountain in Sichuan and Chongqing. Laozi Shudao Mountain. Without hesitation, support your back and jump. Crawling and rolling, Fang Huai disappeared at the door and rushed into the courtyard of the Armed Forces Department. For a while. There is no movement in the system. Outside the gate, Zhang Mei looked at her lost son in shock. Fang Kaiyang got off the car and saw only Zhang Mei. Did he go in by himself? Didn't he take anything? Zhang Mei didn't seem to have regained her senses. He seems to have said no more. Forget it, I'll send it to him. Fang Kaiyang grabbed her and looked at the armed forces with a hint of relief in his eyes. I've grown up, okay. After all these years, you've helped him with everything, got used to him, and finally became independent once. Don't delay him, let's go home. He didn't bring anything. Zhang Mei became anxious. Walk and walk, the troops have everything. The military vehicle will come out soon, won't it be delivered? Don't give it away, let him learn to grow up on his own. When he comes out of the new army, we'll find a way to see him. I promise, you'll definitely see a brand new son. A burst of pulling. The van went far away. Within the Armed Forces Department. Half of the children around were eager to bid farewell to their loved ones, some were still crying, while a few had slightly resolute faces. They wore military uniforms and hats neatly, standing alone in the crowd, looking beautiful and disdainful of being with others. At first glance, he joined the military after serving as a militia in the Armed Forces Department for a while. Fang Huai squatted on the ground, panting heavily. Task completed, congratulations to the host, it's my first time winning the favor of my father. What is father's favor when I wipe it? Are there any special items? Although I regret not making my dad happy in my past life, there's no need for the system to force it, right? Complete 3 tasks and choose a basic ability independently. My mood instantly falls. Fang Huai has read many novels, and when he saw this sentence, he once again felt that his life was safe. Wishing system. What else do you make? He is going to become Superman. In my past life, I was a cowardly soldier. I couldn't even climb the horizontal bar after practicing 3 times. In this life, I will definitely be forced to soar on the bar. Physical fitness overwhelmed the national competition, went out of the squadron to pick girls, was proficient in poetry, songs, and prose, and fans walked everywhere, printing money and spending money systematically. What else does an uncle need to cover it up? Uncle, I'll cover you up in the future. This kind of soldier is not bad in front of. Mom and dad don't have to worry anymore. What kind of divine doctor skill can you learn? Lifelines can't be drawn casually. Fang Huai felt relaxed all over, and he didn't even think about PPTs or anything else. He was well aware that with such a system, earning money or anything was unnecessary. I can't spend it all. After entering this courtyard, his memories of this era were also being restored, and the blurry images began to become clear. It was unclear whether the system was at fault. Next to him was a young man in his 20s who was patting the shoulder of a newly enlisted soldier, speaking with great care. Second, I haven't taken good care of you in these years. Remember, if you want to stand out in the army, you need to be brave. When you have dinner and sing, you can give a report and teach everyone how to sing the song, Green Flowers in the Army, that I taught you. Also, as soon as you enter, you're going to eat welcome noodles. If you don't like that steamed bun, you can ask the head of the cooking class to add your favorite beef steamed bun. If not, you can ask him to stir-fry it for you. Don't be embarrassed to go, the class monitor is very good and likes outgoing soldiers. I will definitely add you. Brother gave you a cigarette, don't smoke it alone. When you enter the army, talk about human relationships and worldly wisdom. When you see the squad leader, give him a cigarette, especially one with a star on his shoulder. If you see him, call him brother. Take out your cigarette, hurry up. We need to light someone up. Here's your whistle, don't let your class monitor notice. On weekends off, the military will send you mobile phones and ask you to make phone calls and contact your home. However, the leaders are busy with work. If the company commander or instructor forgets, you can take out the whistle and blow it loudly to remind them. Oh, by the way. The military has a confidentiality system and cannot take photos. If you find someone wearing casual clothes and taking photos with a camera, it must be an enemy spy. Encountered, your opportunity to make contributions has arrived. I messed it up, at least it's a second-class achievement. If there is a chance, do it yourself. 2 people together may become 2 third-class achievements. These are all secrets that your brother and I learned after working in the army for 2 years. The squad leader won't teach you. Don't tell people easily. I'm Nima, is this my own brother? Deep blood feud. Is there no intention of letting him come out alive? Fang Huai was stunned by the sound. The new soldier was moved and regretful upon hearing this. I know now, brother. I will never mock you again for not getting into a military academy in the future. I will work hard to get into a military academy, stay in the army, and become an officer. Why, brother, if you think too much, you may not be able to hold on until the next platoon and enjoy early discharge. This IQ, even if you stay, it's enough to take the military academy entrance exam. Fang Ping listened with great joy and placed one hand on his shoulder. Brother, what do you mean by stepping over me just now? Fang Huai turned around, big and thick, with a leopard's head and eyes. I'm Nima, little boss. Sorry, I'm developing. No, I didn't pay attention. Fang Huai felt a sudden increase in strength on his shoulder and quickly changed his mouth. The person snorted and patted him twice, and Fang Huai almost sat on the ground. Didn't pay attention. You're jumping quite high. Fang Huai gritted his teeth and slowly stood up, looking at him. Brother, we will all be comrades in arms from now on, isn't it necessary? The person's eyes flickered and the bag in their hand fell to the ground. The sword was drawn and the crossbow was in a state of tension. Fang Huai is over there. Suddenly, out of sight, a female voice came. Damn it, why did you come so late? Another male voice complained. Fang Huai doesn't need to look to know who's coming. His classmate and close friend for 12 years, Chen Shuang. In elementary, middle, and high school, we both signed up to become soldiers together. And his sister, Yang Xiaoqing. My younger sister, just one with the father's surname and the other with the mother's surname. Yang Xiaoqing is the object of admiration among their brothers, each with varying degrees of admiration, but none of them dare to speak up. There's no way, this second child is too beautiful. Chen Shuang is 1.68 meters tall, while Yang Xiaoqing is 1.72 meters tall. He looks a head taller than his brother and has a skin that turns pale. As the saying goes, one white covers 100 ugliness, but Yang Xiaoqing really doesn't need it. Since she grew up and took off her low-profile glasses, Fang Huai hasn't dared to look at her directly. I'm not too brave now. Mainly, there was a sturdy young man in front of him who was watching the tiger get a horse and was staring at him. Task. After joining the army, what are you afraid of? Provoke him. When this line of words appeared in front of Fang Huai's eyes, his heart was a bit overwhelmed. Big brother, I have served in the military before. Don't lie to me, why did I enter the armed forces compound? After serving as a soldier for 5 years in my previous life, I didn't have much beef, okay. And they also served in the army. 3, damn it. Brother, what do you want to do? Draw a line. Fang Huai's body was stiff, but he only made a limited provocation. If the system belongs to the system, in this situation, if there is a fight, he still chooses to protect his waist first. After all, his father has inherited kidney disease. The tiger on the opposite side walked forward with a big stride, with a bit of the pressure of an innate strong person, and tapped his chest. Puckered. What do you want to do? Whatever you want. If this is the entrance of a high school, you can use the phrase, I can do whatever you want, and then point back with your finger as an answer. Cheer up, 2 people can take any 20 minutes. But this is the Armed Forces Department. The cadres in the courtyard and the 2 people beside them both discovered something was wrong. A bright white figure appeared in front of me. Yang Shaoqing stood in front of Fang Huai and brought a warm breeze. What are you doing? Yang Shaoqing exclaimed loudly. The cadres of the Armed Forces Department also walked over and pointed to the pouting brother across from Fang Huai, who seemed to have an advantage at first glance. Hey! You two, stand aside. When the person heard the cadres' words, they gave a slightly displeased and dissatisfied cut sound. Their eyes paused slightly in front of Yang Shaoqing, and then glanced at Fang Huai behind her. Eggs, we still rely on women's protection. After speaking, he tilted his mouth and smiled, taking a step back. Right now. Fang Huai. The third voice came from the entrance of the Armed Forces Department. Huang Jiaojiao's expression was slightly disappointed. She picked up her phone and pointed to the screen. I was still thinking about whether or not to wait for you. I kept calling you, but you didn't answer and ended up fighting here again. Why say, again? When Fang Huai was studying, he was quite righteous and went to help a few friends argue without any worries. Helping people stand on the platform, just saving people's heads, it's really quite foolish. But Fang Huai was also happy at that time. At first, Huang Jiaojiao thought it was okay, but since she went out with her sisters to talk about a real big brother who copied the society, and went out with her sisters to see people beating people when they didn't agree with each other, she thought Fang Huai was very low. When Fang Huai saw this woman again, he felt an indescribable disgust in his heart, not knowing what he had seen in her before. Perhaps when he saw her, he thought of that extremely cowardly self. What he really disliked was that self. Thinking everything through, Fang Huai's face showed a smile. Yang, can I be my girlfriend for 2 minutes? Fang Huai's voice was very quiet, and Yang Shaoqing could just hear him. By the way, Yang Guo is also a very righteous person. He has a strong head and is not cowardly, which is a reflection of her. Her brother Chen Shuang has been protected by her from childhood to adulthood, and she is seen as beautiful in school. There are also many admirers, and no one really disputes with her. The 2 of them have been playing together since Chen Shuang was young, and they are quite familiar. If they borrow money, Yang Guo, this little rich woman, can easily lend her several hundred yuan, but Fang Huai is really not sure if she can agree to this matter. Yang Shaoqing was noticeably stunned. From Fang Huai's perspective, the rhythm of his breathing was not right. Fang Huai quickly added a sentence. There are quite a few reasons, can we explain them later? Yang Shaoqing seemed to have regained his senses, his head slightly tinged. Fang Huai casually placed her shoulder on it, and if it were shaved into vulgar, it was just that she was a bit thin. It's not like being thin everywhere. Still a little nervous, I shook it lightly and made some adjustments. Fang Huai seized the time and smiled. You don't have to worry anymore, can you stop waiting? Leave some time and waste it on those in need in society. I have a new girlfriend now. Looking for Shuyuan www.jiaoshuyuan.com Yang Xiaoqing. You already like her, right? Huang Jiaojiao raised her finger at Yang Xiaoqing, shaking her head and retreating with an incredulous expression on her face. This is all the sadness that can only be performed after watching too many Taiwanese dramas. What is really sad like? For a long time, Fang Huai could see it in the mirror every day. Huang Jiaojiao just feels like she lost face. Fang Huai made no comment, just looked at her. But Yang Xiaoqing beside him shook slightly again and gave Fang Huai a somewhat unnatural look on his face. Huang Jiaojiao sneered with resentment in her eyes and said, I knew it, Fang Huai. I'll tell you, I don't like you either. Turn around and leave. The temperature in his hand, which had just been covered in heat, disappeared instantly. Yang lowered his head, arched back like an actor Xie Chang, and withdrew from Fang Huai's embrace. I just feel a refreshing fragrance fading away. It's a bit empty. Fang Huai also noticed a bit of silence around him. Even many parents were watching the commotion, and he immediately apologized. He clasped his hands and bowed in a circle before finally smiling at the sturdy new soldier who had been jumped on a horse by him. I'm sorry, I just laughed. The person looked at Yang Xiaoqing's flushed and pretty face again, feeling a bit jealous, and turned his head to ignore him. Task completed, congratulations to the host. This is the first time you have gained Yang's shyness. What prop is Yang's shyness? Why is the task only completed now? Damn it, the system wouldn't consider this statement a provocation, would it? What needs to be meaningful? Fang Huai put another hand on his shoulder, and the veins on his hand indicated that the opponent had put in all their effort. Fang Huai, I regard you as my brother. Do you want to be my brother? In law. Chapter 3. Where is my mom? You are listening at novel full.audio. Chen Shuang's action is somewhat beyond his control. He is 1.78 meters tall and falsely claims to be 180. Chen Shuang is 1.68 meters tall and falsely claims to be 1.73. Fang Huai felt helpless and scratched Chen Shuang's hand, ready to turn around and stroke his brother and son's dog head. You're just so sure that I can look up to your sister? Yang turned his head, his eyes slightly warning him not to bully Chen Shuang. But her ears were still red and shy. Fang Huai took a sip of hydraulic air into his stomach. Yang Gu still has some strength. If it were my past life, even if I had just passed high school and had not yet shown too much financial disadvantage in my family, my height and appearance would still be somewhat elevated. I'm just. Hey, that Huang Jiaojiao, you don't have a clue in your mind. I don't want to talk to her anymore. I'll borrow your sister's help. Chen Shuang's face was surprised, as if he hadn't heard his last words. He reached out and took the lead, pulling off Fang Huai's dog head. Yahoo! I was crying while drinking the day before yesterday and said I didn't want to be dumped by her. I figured it out today. Got it. Fang Huai sighed. The 5 organs and 6 viscera, as well as the Ren and Du meridians, are all connected. Chen Shuang's face showed relief. That woman can't do it. I've been wanting to say it for a long time. Stay firm in your thoughts and don't let things slide. When the soldiers return in 2 years, Dad will introduce you to a good one. Then he looked at his sister and looked wary again. But forget about your aunt. You still have a distance from Yonghua. Mutual respect for old men, fathers, is an unchanging topic among Chongqing children. Pop. Fang Huai patted off Chen Shuang's hand. You are going to leave today, can you switch your personal form and talk well? Seriously, you will be a soldier for 2 years. This is the usual posture of Fang Huai Pua and Chen Shuang. First, curse and then ask him a serious question. 2 years, it's impossible to come back any longer. If I don't come back soon, my family's money will be ruined by my sister. I need to quickly use my father's money to make more money. Chen Shuang spoke with a serious expression, while Fang Huai listened with cursing. Other brothers are all knowledgeable, while my brothers are all talented individuals. Chen Shuang is also a business genius. He wouldn't have had such a miserable life if they hadn't teamed up to open a famous car and fourth son's shop in their previous lives. Although Chen Shuang has a big head. However, with the strength of Chen Shuang's family, he invested 95%, and Fang Huai was almost responsible for running sales with dry stocks, which was enough for Fang Huai to suffer a disastrous loss. Later, Chen Shuang's family lost money. It is said that they borrowed a lot of money and invested it in a mine, but the boss was arrested. His house and car were sold, and before Fang Huai's rebirth, the money was not taken out. Brother, if it's not possible, tell your father to quickly go to Shanghai and buy 2 houses and a few storefronts, shops. They're going to rise, really. Fang Huai has been reborn and doesn't have much strength. He still needs to join the army at the moment, so he can only advise his brothers first. However, the fire department is fine as they are stationed in the city. After passing the stage of demobilizing new recruits, they have the ability and some start-up funds. As long as they can find suitable people to help them operate, it is not impossible to do something to make money. Chen Shuang nodded without comment, mainly because his voice over his parents was also limited now. Once confirmed, go to Guiyang for firefighting. Well, my uncle is over there, and he will have a better chance of taking a leave or something in the future. Damn it, I envy you. I don't have many relatives in the military, so I can only become a top soldier in the People's Armed Police. Chen Shuang said, shaking his head as if he was complaining about his parents' lack of competitiveness. The internal security and firefighting are both part of the armed police sequence, Fang Huai corrected and quickly taught him something. You are called Neiwei, the biological son of the People's Armed Police, with the largest number of people and a mobile division in the lower ranks. Your responsibilities are also mixed. When you join the new army, you may also be directly assigned to the new soldier company. The old soldiers are all called squad leaders, so don't make a name for yourself, and don't say that your family is wealthy, and your family in the army is much poorer. Don't ask why, just listen. If you're really sick and uncomfortable, don't complain. Just stick to the training ground and faint directly. The class monitor can't approve your leave. Only when the leaders on the training ground see it, can you go to the medical room or rest in class. I know, Lu Haiyang in our yard is a soldier. He told me a long time ago, by the way, you didn't bring anything. My parents brought me a lot of food. Do you want to bring some? Fang Huai nodded and glanced at the door again. My parents should be waiting at the door for me to go out and give me a ride, right? No need, my parents also brought it, and it will be handed to me at the door later. The things I brought, especially cigarettes, were eaten on the way, and when I entered the new recruits company, I shouldn't be able to leave. You are also a new recruit after leaving the team, so I can't let you smoke. Smoking can't afford training. Okay, I'll go talk to my sister for a while. Tell her, let your parents go to Shanghai to buy a house, storefront. Got it. Chen Shuang waved his hand. More than 10 minutes of loneliness. A car has already left and stopped at the entrance. It should be from a very small number of troops such as Forest Gold. There are also fewer firefighters, but they are walking with the Guizhou Armed Police. When they gathered, their respective receiving officers stood in front of the queue, while Chen Shuang stood in the team on the right, laughing happily and making a face at him. Fang Huai rolled his eyes. Laugh, your child won't be able to laugh for hours anymore. Listen to my command. Look right in line. Look forward. Boarding. A captain and a sergeant in front commanded the young boys to get onto the big truck. Fang Huai threw the camouflage bag up very coquettishly, but didn't climb the escalator. He grabbed the handrail beside him and ran embarrassed, didn't jump up, body suspended in mid-air. Quickly turning around and shouting, "Brother behind, give it a push, give it a push." The sergeant behind them all smiled and casually sent Fang Huai up, while also copying the accent of a Jiangxi old watch to encourage him. Dare to take dangerous paths, courage is commendable, but as for ability, it's almost there. Thank you, class monitor. Fang Huai chuckled and recognized the sergeant. He is a regular soldier of the new fire brigade and also one of the squad leaders of the 7th company he went to. It's a bit convoluted to say that. There are not many firefighters, and there are only a few hundred new recruits in Guizhou every year. They are all concentrated in the fire training base of the provincial capital for the new corps. This year, they should have 7 or 8 companies, each with 9 classes. In his past life, he was divided into 7 companies. This sergeant is the oldest soldier in their 7th company. In the army, also known as Old Ghost, they hold a high status. Some military seniority. No, armed police officers are called police seniority, and officers with lower police seniority also refer to veterans as squad leaders. And these veterans, although they are older, most of them have one or more astonishing skills, and their physical fitness is not as weak as what they usually see when walking slowly. Actually, if you think about it carefully, you will understand that besides the rare 1st and 2nd level sergeant, even the oldest soldier is only in his 30s. How weak can he be in his 30s? Thinking of this, Fang Huai couldn't help but support his waist and recall his physical condition before his death. Okay, actually, when people reach 30, the decline is quite significant. Shoo shoo shoo. The commander holding a small red flag in front blew a slightly leaky whistle and gestured towards this side. Bomb. Many liberation cars were driving together, traveling slowly. Firecrackers are blaring at the entrance, and gongs and drums are making a noise. Fang Huai sat on the small horse on the right, with his hands on his knees, sitting upright and looking outside, hoping to show his parents a mature and stable image when they went out, so that they could rest assured. In the back car, Yang Shaoqing said goodbye to his brother and quickly caught up, waving his hand vigorously. Fang Huai. Okay. Fang Huai nodded and also waved his hand loudly. You too, study hard in college. When you have time, come to Guiyang to play with me. My phone number remains the same. Yang Xiao tilted his eyebrows and curved his eyes, pointing to his phone. Okay, contact me by phone. Fang Huai looked at Yang Shaoqing's bright smile, somewhat uplifted. Once reborn, many things began to change. As the car drove out, the lively sounds around became louder. Various parents were mixed on both sides of the door, and there were also a few vegetable sellers nearby. Very economic-minded. The parents who sent the soldiers sent away all the mischievous dolls, and the couple were not allowed to buy some vegetables and take a few sips home to celebrate. That's the child of Chow Yuan's family. Do you see it? The one sitting in front. The hat is crooked and worn. Madam, come quickly. Zhang Yang, you're coming back to marry a wife. Exercise well. Fang Huai sat upright and perilous. Child, listen to the leader. Take the military academy exam. I know. The boy wearing glasses next to Fang Huai helped him with his glasses, feeling slightly proud. Fang Huai continued to sit upright. My parents must be waiting for me outside, sit up straight. The boy across from him grabbed the car and shouted loudly, Mom. Don't fight with the old man. If you really want to have a second child, just give birth. The man under the car suddenly exploded. Give birth to your mother's feet. How old are both your mother and I? Exercise well. The cars have all walked to the door, and no one has called his name yet. Fang Huai was a bit panicked. Where's my mom? Mom! Fang Huai shouted around. Ah! A woman who was preparing to turn back immediately turned around and agreed. The two of them looked at each other, and no one knew each other. Fang Huai and the woman were both a bit embarrassed. Fang Huai didn't care about embarrassment anymore. Damn it, my mom's gone. This feeling is quite psychedelic. On the way here, I kept nagging and saying that my son was leaving, so I didn't even bother to give him gifts. I even gave it away in my past life. Your faces are changing so quickly, second elder. Are you the ones who want to have a second child? As the vehicle took to the street, Fang Huai watched helplessly as the people ahead blew and beat, followed by a troop transport vehicle that shook and sent away countless young people from society. Before entering the army, one should wear a small red flower and patrol the streets nearby to show honor and the care of the local government and the people. Wearing a small red flower on the chest when entering the army and a large red flower when retiring, this mechanism is probably using the idea of kindergarten to send people back to simple satisfaction. The military emphasizes two words. Honor. Excellent soldiers are admitted to military academies, awarded the third-class merit first, learned to join the Communist Party, hung a plaque at the entrance of their second-class merit homes, appeared on television for first-class merit, and received honorary titles. It's too difficult to obtain the highest level honor of the Military Merit Medal from the Sichuan website www.zhaoxuan.com outside of wartime. Of course, there are also those who are alive, but most of them live in the hearts of many people. It is quite difficult for ordinary troops to achieve meritorious service, as they usually have to participate in large-scale competitions to win rankings or participate in year-end evaluations. But firefighting, hey. Mom. Fang Huai was sitting in the garage lost in memories when he suddenly saw his own small bread parked on the roadside. Stopped quite far away, but vaguely visible was the melancholic prince-like profile of my father holding a cigarette. Fang Huai waved and the other side responded with a "Didi. Duan Yu, this is." Fang Huai smiled and wanted to shout out, "The Heavenly King covers the Earth Tiger." But whether the old man goes back to stewing chicken with mushrooms or hanging a length of 1.5 meters, it doesn't quite fit the seriousness of a father. Forget it, he doesn't know either. Dad used to often read insightful jokes, but since his mother left, he hasn't laughed much. Mom also reached her head and waved at him, as if she was still crying, wiping her face. Fang Huai waved again. I suddenly realized that my dad is quite handsome and his way of saying goodbye is also quite cool. Mom is too foolish. She still cries. On the van. Fang Kaiyang turned his head to look at Zhang Mei, and his cigarette but popped out of the window. Have you seen it enough? It's just like that, drinking foolishly. Zhang Mei rolled her eyes in frustration and said, I've prepared an ashtray for you in the car. Does that cigarette end insist on popping out? When the child comes back, you haven't taken off your cigarette ring yet. If you smoke again, ask him to use a high-pressure water gun to extinguish it for you. Fang Kaiyang chuckled, caution, quit. The Fang family disdains the formation of a closed loop in the chain. Chapter 4. Relationship Soldier, I'll dress you up. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Train station. The teams of the People's Liberation Army and the People's Armed Police are clearly distinct. Cadres and receiving non-commissioned officers of the People's Liberation Army have helped new recruits reorganize their backpacks, blankets, bedding, 3 horizontal and 2 vertical layers, with shoes pressed down, and camouflage uniforms different from those of the armed police. The inner guards of the armed police also reorganized the blankets and bedding. 2 firefighters arrived to pick up the soldiers. The backpack was taught by the Ministry of Armed Forces to pack. Some had already put the mattress in the backpack, while others did not. The camouflage bag was bulging and looked very irregular when held in hand. During the process of waiting to board the train, everyone seemed to have noticed this awkwardness. In the train from Chongqing to Guizhou, there were only about 10 firefighters standing alone, which was very obvious. This year, Guizhou Fire Department did not recruit troops in Chongqing, and its main recruitment direction is in Hunan, Hubei, and local Guizhou. So these 10 or so people are probably related households. What I knew in my heart was that I was just casually putting on a show, feeling like I was going to become an old man. He was very handsome, unique, and more sociable, so I began to quietly inquire about the other person's relationship. Those who are not clear in their hearts look around, with a hint of envy on their faces for the confident military posture of other troops, thinking that they are truly regular troops. Fortunately, the leading cadres and non-commissioned officers discovered this issue, discussed it for a while, and walked over to start quietly organizing the team. Forward alignment. My name is Lu Mangong. Your team leader, behind you is class monitor Hao Qingbin. Lu Mangong said as he pulled his hand beside him. 7th place, come in a bit and adjust it later. Lu Mangong said in front, while Hao Qingbin behind him also helped to tidy up his straps one by one, chatting softly. You should listen carefully. This is Deputy Chief of Staff Lu from your new corps. We will be together for 3 more months in the future. If there is anything in the car, please call me and don't run around. My name is Hao Qingbin, Wen Wubin, just call me Bin Gu. Fang Huai smiled and remembered many past events. Hao Qingbin is indeed very mischievous and has started selling out again. This person really enjoys dealing with related households. If these new recruits really call him Bin Gu and join the new army, they may not even be able to enjoy the warmth of the first night. Most of the soldiers who come to lead the army are first-class non-commissioned officers and corporal. The squad leaders have to call him Squad Leader Hao, and your name is Bin Gu. Have you ever tasted the fiery passion of 3.30 in the middle of the night? Bin, can we fire guns? A friend behind Fang Huai rolled his eyes and raised his hand. Fa, we are all firing cannons, water cannons, Hao Qingbin said with some amusement. That guy was also very mischievous, and immediately let out a sigh of sorrow. Done, this soldier is considered useless. A burst of laughter followed. Hao Qingbin stared at the new recruit egg for a moment, then smiled and stepped forward to pat him. Don't worry, this soldier will definitely not make you fall for nothing. The laughter stopped behind. When Hao Qingbin walked to the front, the back of the team began to mock the guy just now. Brother, you should enjoy your life when you enter the army. That's an old squad leader, I'm sure he'll take care of you. That guy is quite tough. What are you afraid of? He's just scaring you. My little uncle is also the Deputy Chief of Staff of the detachment. Major. He said that Captain is the Deputy Chief of Staff of the regiment, I don't believe it. After watching the excitement and not being afraid of big things, he immediately reached out and gave him a thumbs up. Then you can ask him later and see if he's in your uncle's detachment. Maybe he will really take care of you. Don't whisper in the back. Follow the last column on the right and board the car. The nearby team began to move. Hao Qingbin walked outside the queue and became much more serious, his voice becoming louder. Follow my command, step in step, go. In the car, the landlord's landlord, chatting and addicted to smoking, went to the smoking area to take a sip, chat and start boasting about how good their respective troops were. I heard from the class monitor that our equipment is the best, and your armed police are a bit behind us. We will still manage the prisoners in the future. As the fire department leisurely passed, his face showed a hint of caution. I heard from my brother that there are many people in the People's Liberation Army and the Inner Guard, so the food expenses are relatively low. Our fire brigade only has more than 10 people, and the food expenses are the highest. No matter how good the equipment is, can you take it with you? Good food is the real thing. And I heard that there are also more high-risk subsidies than you. In the future, my salary will be several hundred higher than yours. As soon as these words were spoken, both the People's Liberation Army and the armed police's internal guards fell silent. Entering the army, everyone talks about protecting our country. Are you talking to us about food and salary? Damn it. Jealousy. After a while, he choked out a sentence. You have the highest sacrifice rate, you exchanged your life for it. Fang Huai sat by the window, quietly pondering how to complete a task. Let's first see what kind of reward this system is. He had already wandered around the carriage a moment ago without any response, silently reciting it n times in his heart, and the system never appeared. If this system doesn't have any money-making function, he will have to find a way to get off the team and be assigned to the provincial capital Guiyang. Guizhou is no longer an option, and once the idea reaches the provincial capital, there can be more opportunities. I have already sold out my own household, so I definitely can't do business. But let my dad come over and guide him in starting a business, becoming a middle-aged and wealthy second-generation. That's also okay. Fang Huai was lost in thought, and Hao Qingbin in front stood up. You guys, do you have anyone without money? It's still over 7 hours until we arrive, and there's nothing else in the car. I'll treat you to instant noodles. Hao Qingbin just casually asked these words. After all, these Chongqing people are all relationship soldiers, and their family environment should not be bad. There are no rural soldiers, and he and Lu Mangong have a good understanding. Someone immediately laughed and said, I've brought it all. Class monitor, I still have bread here, from Qinyuan. Do you want to eat some? There's also Wangzi. We can't finish it, we'll waste it when we arrive. Don't worry, we'll give you time to finish when you get there. After Hao Qingbin spoke in a gentle voice, he was ready to buy instant noodles. Fang Huai was originally planning to grab some food and drink from other new recruits. After all, they all know that these things are not necessary to eat when entering the army. But suddenly a line of words appeared in front of him, and he quickly raised his hand. Class monitor, I didn't bring any money. I didn't bring any food either. Hao Qingbin turned his head, a bit surprised. The person next to him gave him an elbow and pulled out a bag from under the seat, showing great generosity. I eat a lot here, you can eat mine. Fang Huai's face showed confusion. I still want to eat something hot. Class monitor, can I go with you to have instant noodles? Hao Qingbin didn't care either. With a monthly income of over 3,000 yuan and various subsidies, he couldn't afford to buy a bowl of instant noodles worth 5 yuan on the train. Let's go, I'll treat you to eat, he gestured. Fang Huai nodded, got up and followed behind, his mind spinning rapidly. The question given to him by the system this time is not simple. Task. Go beg for food, go for undefined food. Find a way to get close to Hao Qingbin and join his new recruit squad. This is not impossible. Because in his past life, he was a soldier of the 7th Company of the New Corps, and Hao Qingbin was also the squad leader of the 7th Company. He should have gone to Class 2. He doesn't quite remember which class Hao Qingbin led. Anyway, he was the model squad leader. When he finished training and was selected for the next team, he also led one of the Q model squad. Human relationships and worldly wisdom. Hao Qingbin is the oldest soldier, accompanied by several years of new recruits, and is also familiar with the base leaders. There is no personal hair problem. And his class was indeed the most enjoyable at that time. The training is done well, everyone has grilled fish to eat and smoking. Go to Class 2 by yourself. The class monitor, don't mention being a chicken thief, took a candy and said that whoever trains best will be given to eat. Fang Huai vividly remembers that the candy in the left pocket of the class monitor's clothes was enough to pua 10 of them for the Chinese New Year from December. The new army has meat, but they basically can't eat sugar, let alone snacks. Before the end of each day's training, the on-duty new soldiers who take turns serving food want to see pumpkin soup the most. When they encounter it, they quietly pour 2 spoonfuls under their own food, and that meal can be very exciting. The taste of not having sugar for several months, who really knows who tried? Is 1 bowl enough? If not, take 2 bowls. Hao Qingbin had already walked to the door of the car selling things at the back and turned his head. Fang Huailian hurriedly said, Class monitor, just 1 bowl is enough. Fang Huai held 2 bowls of soaked noodles and carefully handed a bowl to Hao Qingbin, known as Master Kang's braised beef noodles. Class monitor, it's hot, slow down. Hao Qingbin nodded, took it, stirred it up twice, blew it, and took a fork into his mouth. Sure. Didn't your family bring you anything? Fang Huai held a bowl of noodles and looked for Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com, feeling like he was interviewing. All the elders in my family have served in the military and said they won't be allowed to lead them. They have everything in the army. Fang Huai casually boasted and accidentally reached some kind of spiritual connection with his father. Hao Qingbin's first reaction was that the child was showing off their relationship. With a smile, he said, "The leader of the army, the firefighter." "Oh, no, it's just a big-head soldier. Grandpa Tai fought against RB people and later sacrificed himself. My dad is also a soldier and worked in the Reclamation Corps for a few years before retiring as a chef. He has a comrade in the fire department and asked someone to recruit me." Fang Huai's words are not a boast. His great-grandfather's biological brother, who had fought against RB people, was just a yellow-skinned man. Zhang's army was killed by RB people. He didn't mention a word who his uncle was. He did a lot of foolish things back then. When he joined the new Army Corps, he asked to fill in family relationships. In addition to his parents, he also filled in his uncle's name and official position. At that time, his idea was, "We don't want any special treatment, at least don't be bullied, do we?" The result was a mockery from the class monitor and extra attention from the training. Every time the class checked, they searched his bag first, fearing that he might have hidden his phone and secretly reported it to his uncle. Veterans are afraid of bringing in such relationship soldiers. Newcomers are already suffering, and those who have connections seize the opportunity to add fuel and vinegar to report to their families. They blame them, but there is no benefit, it's just a lawsuit. This kind of relationship soldier, at least 100 out of 1,000 people every year, who doesn't have a soldier in their family. Is it all for you to hold? Can't others make it through their days? The only solution is to dress up, and be more obedient than others. The contract has been signed and will be sent over in 2 days for investment. Chapter 5. System Startup. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Hao Qingbin stood in awe. Anti-Japanese War, Construction Corps. I'm a hero and a hero. Now I have sent my child to join the army again. This is the soul of soldiers passed down from generation to generation. In Hao Qingbin's eyes, Fang Huai suddenly became a soldier that must be well-shaped. I can't disappoint the hope of such a family. Well, hearing you say that, you were sent by your family. Do you want to join the army yourself? Think. Fang Huai's eyes immediately lit up. Class monitor, when I was a child, I used to listen to my dad tell stories about him and my great-grandfather. He also said that there is no war now, and although there are no guns in the fire department, there is a battle. He wants me to take 2 military medals back and go to my great-grandfather's grave to have a look. I just don't know if I can get the military merit medal back, and that second prince is not a systematic one. Can I get to know him? Fang Huai's heartfelt performance has exploded among industry giants, with a focus on being as filial as thunder. Good child. In his 10th year of service, Hao Qingbin was only 28 years old, with a false 29 and a hair of 30. Faced with the simple and unadorned gaze of a young man with a tender face at the age of 35, he was deceived and felt a little emotional. I didn't expect to hear such a touching story when I came to pick up these old soldiers this time. By the way, Chongqing, which used to belong to Sichuan, was also part of the Sichuan army. Brave soldiers leave Sichuan. Sichuan Army. Hao Qingbin only had a junior high school education and was completely unaware that the Sichuan army back then was a warlord unit. And Fang Huai, the second prince, was recruited into the army after being captured as a strong soldier. He was only 16 years old when he sacrificed himself. It is said that before leaving, he cried and made a fuss to beg for a mother.in.law. Where did he come from? All are dividends of the times. Well, when we arrive at the army, I'll go say hello to your squad leader and train you well. I'll make sure you bring a military merit badge home. Hao Qingbin said, patting Fang Huai's shoulder. Eat noodles, if it's not enough, buy another bowl. With 5 years of military service and more than a decade of social struggles, Fang Huai felt that his emotions had already been laid in place. Class monitor, are you leading troops? Fang Huai opened the instant noodles and blew in circles like drinking tea, observing Hao Qingbin through the rising mist. Well, I need to bring it. In the future, when you train, you can often see me. If you have anything to say to me. By the way, what's your name? Fang Huai, Fang Fangjing's Fang, Huai in the Huaihai campaign, that's how my father explained my name. Oh. Hao Qingbin nodded. Your great-grandfather died in the Huaihai campaign, right? That's what my dad said. Fang Huai nodded immediately. In fact, Fang Huai's original name was Fang Huai, the 15th generation of the Fang family in Xiang, Sichuan. The character Huai means clear flow and also represents strength and courage. Later, Zhang Mei felt that the name was feminine and that Shu sounded like the Shu she used to name girls at that time, so she forcibly removed the character Shu from her household registration book. Later, Fang Huai failed the college entrance examination, and Fang Kaiyang kept muttering to Zhang Mei. I don't even have any books left, can I read good books? Yes. Fang Huai also took advantage of the situation and threw the pot of the college entrance examination onto Feng Shui, so angry that Zhang Mei wanted Fang Huai to change his name to Fang Qinghua and study again for a year. Work hard in the army, don't let down your family's expectations. When Hao Qingbin said this, he had already started drinking soup. Fang Huai is a bit urgent. Cough, class monitor, my dad said he needs to learn more from an old class monitor like you in order to learn real skills. Can I join your class in the new corps? Hao Qingbin was taken aback. I lead troops differently from other squad leaders, it's very aggressive. Fang Huai almost chuckled. The other class leaders are not only fierce, but also very stingy and brute. I'm not afraid of hardship, I just want to have a strict old class monitor. Fang Huai wanted the train to quickly pass through a cave and show the wolf-like light in his eyes to Hao Qingbin. Hey! Your classes have all been divided, so you shouldn't be in the same company as me. There are many companies in the new corps. Hee, it's okay, class monitor. I understand now. It's my fault, I'm making things difficult for you. Fang Huai answered quickly, then revealed a simple smile from a rural child. There was a hint of disappointment mixed inside. It's not hard to learn. There are many fools who laugh so much with goods in Kuai. Hao Qingbin sighed. Okay, if you're in the same company as me, I'll give it a try. Okay, class monitor, it's a deal. Returning to their seats, a group of people stopped playing cards and were discussing soldier assault. Some want to be Su Sanduo, some think old A is particularly handsome, Gao Cheng is a high company commander, class monitor sure, and Wu Liuyi it seems that everyone who came this time is going to participate in large-scale events. In the following years, military themes were released every year, and there were also Captain and Special Forces series, which made many people boil with excitement. When the quilt was lifted, the money given by parents was no longer popular, and they wanted to become heroes. As soon as the result went, Quan Te Mo's The Story of the Cooking Class. Hey, soldier assault, which one do you like? The brother who was about to give him food just now raised his chin at him. Fang Huai completed the task and also had some leisure. He let out a burp and felt something was missing. He reached out and shook his 2 fingers. Do you have any cigarettes? The brother's eyebrows trembled, looking clever. Let's go ahead. Fang Huai sat up straight and looked at Hao Qingbin in front, who seemed to be taking a nap. He whispered, "Draw from the back." The two of them arrived next to the selling goods in the back carriage, puffing in mist. "Hey, you haven't said, sa, yet, which one do you like?" "Me. Soldier assault. I like Li Meng." "Li Meng. Well, the one from class 5 on the grassland." Fang Huai, after undergoing a systematic transformation, still remembers the events before his rebirth vividly. He learned from Li Meng, who inserted his pocket with one hand, turned his hand over, and held a cigarette, exuding a general aura. "I want to write a novel, calm and down to earth. I want to write a 3 million word novel about life." "Cut, what's there to learn about Li Meng?" "Scrap wood. You don't understand, the position of grassland class 5 is not delegated, it has to be snatched." Fang Huai patted the brother's shoulder, his eyes shrouded in smoke, and he looked old. Just now, the salesperson who watched Fang Huai obediently eat instant noodles here noticed that after less than 10 minutes, Fang Huai returned here with a cigarette in his mouth and began to brandish his words. She couldn't help but shudder. Scalp tingling. No wonder her 10-year-old son can deceive her with various tutoring fees and material fees. Nowadays, children have so many ulterior motives that they look like honeycomb coal. When I got off the train at 8 p.m., the brother next to me named Xiao Peng was completely impressed by his powerful knowledge and even revealed his family background. The nephew of the captain of the Chao branch in Lepanshui. I also talked about the wives of Chao detachment leader who were introduced by his mother. In the past, because Chao detachment was ugly and short, the wives could hardly get the secret. Heavenly selection of a great filial son. The Chao detachment wants to clean up the door after hearing this. Transfer. It's still a new type of Yaxing air-conditioned bus. As soon as we get off the train in Guiyang, this wave feels like we're at home. Just now, I looked down on the PLA and the security guards who didn't fire guns. When I saw the bus that stood out among the crowd because it was too warm and the windows were filled with steam, and then I looked at the military ventilated truck that came to pick them up, which was no different from the one we set off from. I felt a little envious. The firefighting brothers stood up, holding their heads and chests high. Firefighting is good. Everything was warm before entering the army, and the leading cadre Lu Mangong taught them to sing, "Unity is strength," in the car. Everyone was excited and sang along the way to the training base. Fang Huai knows why he needs to teach, because he needs to use it for lunch tomorrow. When getting off the car, I was very excited. There is a retail store next to the entrance of the training base, which is not too late and still brightly lit inside. This small shop is so rudimentary. It seems like we don't even have a freezer. My duck, can't you see such a big freezer? It's a bit small, but buying some daily necessities should be enough. Everyone expressed varying degrees of disgust towards this retail store, and Fang Huai couldn't help but roll his eyes. From here on, it will be a paradise that the new recruits of the entire new army group can only hope for but cannot reach. Lu Mangong went into the hospital and explained to Hao Qingbin before leaving. Hao Qingbin made a phone call, twice. After a while, a second lieutenant arrived with only 5 bars on his qualification seal. He nodded with Hao Qingbin and walked up to the queue. "Comrades, let me take you to the cafeteria for dinner first. Training base, new training building, 4th floor. Company commander's office." As soon as Hao Qingbin opened the door, the aroma of grilled fish emanated. "Lao Hao, have you returned?" A thin, black-eyed lieutenant beside the grilled fish plate looked up and smiled. Across from him was another lieutenant, with 2 first-class sergeants sitting next to the computer, pointing at the screen. "Wai Ri, Wang Lian, this is your final carnival." Hao Qingbin placed his regular military cap on the table by the door, walked to the iron frame bed against the wall, and sat down, patting his head. Wang Jian, who was thin and had small eyes, smiled with wrinkles on his face. Yeah, the second batch of Chongqing has arrived. They should all be here the day after tomorrow. If we don't have another meal, it won't be easy in the future. Hao Qingbin waved his hand indifferently. What are you afraid of? When the new recruits turn off the lights, you will have a late-night snack. Do you want to eat your own food? Unless an emergency gathering is arranged, the leaders are basically not available after 11 o'clock. The two officers glanced at each other, and Wang Jian smiled again and said, both Director Liang and I are here for the first time to lead new recruits. You are familiar with Chief Yang, and if there are any issues in the company in the future, it's up to you. Lao He is easy to talk about, just don't let Captain Huang catch him. The political commissar is female and usually doesn't come up. You should maintain good relationships with the staff in the regiment, and the most important thing is that new recruits can't have any problems. Hao Qingbin spoke with a familiar expression. Then, what came to mind again? By the way, I just came up to take a look. In our building, there is a bent aluminum pipe on the window fence of the stairs, which is a safety hazard. We must report it for repair as soon as possible. It happened to require someone to replace it with a new steel pipe, which I can't break. This way, you can save a lot of trouble in the coming months. Okay, I'm afraid this kind of thing will happen. Wang Jian took out a notebook seriously to record. Hey! How did Jiang Peng get assigned to our class? Wang Lian, didn't I tell you, don't assign Yunnan to our class? I really can't understand Yunnan dialect. The corporal in front of the computer shouted. The politeness on Wang Jian's face dissipated. Didn't I tell you? It's part of the team. If you can't stand it, just go back to Hunan and join the army. The corporal looked resentful and said, I can't stand it, I can't understand it. Our squadron has a person from Yunnan who speaks Yunnan Mandarin. I can only understand half of the two sentences. Hao Qingbin stood up and approached, and two corporals gave him some space. Hao Qingbin leaned over to the computer and smiled, what are you afraid of? Those who have studied in college may even be better at Mandarin than you. 21 years old. Yes, I'm old enough. If you have a good personality, you can cultivate it and become a deputy class monitor. Well, if you don't want it, I'll go talk to Lao He tomorrow and transfer to our class. As soon as Hao Qingbin spoke, the corporal hesitated a bit. After a while, he gritted his teeth and said, okay, Captain Hao, you can take it with you. I'm too old to train at this age. A few people in the room laughed. Hao Qingbin pulled him and said, then move aside and I'll see what needs to be adjusted. All those who are too old will be transferred to me. Let's report to the Chief of Staff together later. Okay. The corporal simply left the computer and sat down to eat grilled fish. Hao Qingbin took the opportunity to take the mouse and swiped it. Suddenly seeing something, I was a bit stunned. Are you really in our company? As he spoke, he turned to ask the corporal just now, Sun Chang, is Xiang Ziyuan the monitor of Class 2? Well, he went to buy cigarettes. Tell him, this Fang Huai is from Class 9. Fang Huai is eating noodles. It's noodles again. However, the taste is much inferior to braised beef noodles. The cafeteria staff at the fire training base are all outsourced, and only a few of them from Chongqing came tonight, without leaving 2 people. The cadre who led them to eat personally cooked a large pot of noodles and brought them some simple salt, sauce, and vinegar. There's no braised whistle or anything like that. Everyone talked about the good fire treatment all the way, and when they came in, it was like this. When we see each other, it's like this. Degree. When eating noodles, the inner thoughts are like this. Fang Huai was also trying to swallow his noodles, but suddenly a line of words appeared in front of him when he searched for the book garden www.zhaozhuiyuan.com. Task completed. The system is matching task rewards, first time receiving a reward, you can choose a new race. Fang Huai gulped down his saliva. Orcs direction. You will gain the basic features of orcs. Hardened skin. Introduction. Human skin does not conform to the laws of natural evolution, and returning to ancestors is not necessarily a form of evolution. Vampire direction. You will gain the basic vampire feature. Sharp teeth. Introduction. Say goodbye to brushing your teeth from now on. Goblin direction. You will obtain goblin primary features. Half size. Introduction. Dwarf inventor, with a slimmer body but a more developed brain. Human direction. You have obtained all human features. Fang Huai. This system is either playing with him or playing with Warcraft. It is also possible to have both. Orcs, vampires, goblins, giants. Just give power or talent, give characteristics first. Can it be hidden? If you can't leave the new army, you have to pull me to dissect, right? Human. Human. Fang Huai instantly felt a hot current surging in his body, circulating. Detected hidden dangers in heart function. Detected hidden dangers in kidney function. Detected hidden dangers in lung function. Detected. Suggest abandoning human characteristics. Sleeping slot, UDJ. Indeed, people cannot undergo physical examinations. I am only 19 years old, and when I was reborn in the morning, I still feel my young body full of energy, which makes me feel like I am about to give up. 4,000 words per chapter, press the word count. New book, author's comments. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Sign the contract, send a single seal. I am a newcomer who has only been writing a book for half a year. The previous business book, from not being able to write novels to being able to learn and imitate different literary styles, wrote 1.6 million words. As the situation gradually improved, due to some hidden dangers left by my previous company, I couldn't write anymore and had to temporarily stop until the lawsuit was resolved before writing. Change the number and write a new book. When I opened this book, I scanned the list all day and wanted to write about this and that. Later, I thought about it and realized that it would be better to write about what I know. Talk about books. The real life of the fire brigade is the main focus. Please note that it is a fire brigade, and the nature of work is different. Don't use other troops to criticize, do not accept it. Of course, writing about fire protection is also because there are many daily lives interwoven in cities. When it comes to military service, it's all about training, martial arts competitions, collective training, meritorious achievements and promotion, or military king, which is also very boring. If you only want to read these, it's better to switch to a different book. Of course, the military content is the main theme, but I'm afraid you won't find the chapters you like and come back to criticize me. The target is set at a low point, 2.5 to 3 million words, and it may also move upwards. After thinking for a few days, I finally decided to write a book that combines my own insights. Let's change from pure mindless pleasure to 3/4 mindless pleasure. When reading, you can store your brain or leave some, try not to create negative energy, and bring joy to readers. System issues, careful consideration, and creating attribute tables may reduce people's interest in the story. The author is good at writing stories and following group portraits, and this is not a business article. Having too many accounts is also not good, and people may feel overwhelmed. Therefore, it is better to focus more energy on the story itself. Limited ability, and it should be enjoyable. Chapter 6. Let's be individuals. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Fang Huai took a deep breath and once again firmly chose the direction of humanity. Let's just say, it's better to prioritize life preservation. Even if you have a heart attack again, you can still live for at least a decade. Let's just be a person. It's also more convenient to pass on the family line or something. Don't create a big family, it's not good, and even parents can't accept it. The direction of human reinforcement is being bound generating rewards. Please select your reward. 1. Daijun is LV1, skill introduction. You understand. 2. Slight increase in waist strength. 3. Cardiac enhancement, this time, it's more or less dependent on the score. The skill of stacking troops is relatively weak for Fang Huai. After being away from the military for so many years, he may have regressed. However, wasting such a precious reward opportunity to learn is still a bit of nonsense. Moreover, even with the best technology, the quilts outside cannot be folded like those in the army. The quilts in the army are so neat and hard-tied, and they need to be drawn on the line, with a small horse tied and pressed on the edge. They also need to be slowly rubbed and touched by hand, and if touched too much, they will convince you. Some veterans refer to this process as flirting. If conditions permit, you still need to open it and use the quilt cover to press the edges of the inner mattress tightly, then sew it back on, so that the mattress inside won't run around when folded. This is called tuning. It is said that 3 parts are stacked and 7 parts are repaired, but before that, you still need to polish the quilt well. Folding your own quilt is the most convenient, and where the line is, you have a clear mind. There is no rush to strengthen the heart. The myocardial infarction in a previous life is not a genetic disease. It is purely caused by insomnia and long-term staying up late. Fang Huai can remember that it was after 3 consecutive days of overtime and insomnia that the symptoms of angina appeared. My parents passed away, my life was disappointing, and as I grew older, I began to suffer from various illnesses. I shouldn't be able to use it at the moment. Even if it's running, no matter how good your heart function is, you need to combine core strength and lung function to improve your performance. With a thought, Fang Huai chose to increase his waist strength. Fang Huai twisted his waist. I don't feel that the changes are too significant, even less obvious than the physical examination just now. I picked up the clothes and looked at them, but a small piece of fat on my belly was still alive. Stretching straight, I didn't see any abdominal muscles. Is it so? Slightly. System Big Brother. The unresponsive attitude seemed to tell him that there was no after-sales service for this matter. Fang Huai is facing some difficulties now. Is this system a bit weak? But the other evolutionary directions he was given just now are not weak at all. It must be beyond the limits of humanity. But at this moment, it seems that there are no really amazing functions. What kind of skill is it to say that something like folding blankets doesn't even trigger CDs? I'm afraid we still have to deal with the money issue, right? At least there is still a bit of rebirth in terms of knowledge and face, and earning money is not a problem. If he really can't go out, his family's small fortune, all in Mao Tai or 10-cent stocks, can be bought with equity dividends and compound interest, and at least it can increase by several hundred times, which is enough for him to have no worries about food and clothing. Fang Huai stood up with a stomach full of worries, glanced at the second lieutenant, and smoothly poured the half-bowl of hard-to-swallow noodles into the nearby bucket of waste water. Chao Peng's eyes were fixed on the other side of the big round table. He watched him come back and sit down again, and then looked at the second lieutenant waiting for them to eat noodles at the table on the other side. He whispered in disbelief, "Did you pour out the noodles that the leader cooked himself?" Several new recruits who were slightly tipsy from eating noodles also looked up at him. Fang Huai wiped his mouth and nodded generously, "It's not delicious. They didn't force you to eat, so don't eat if you don't want to." After speaking, he turned his head to the second lieutenant and said, "Chief, if you can't eat it anymore, can you pour it out?" The second lieutenant smiled awkwardly and nodded, "The cafeteria is not here tonight, and I'm not very good at cooking. If I don't want to eat, I'll just pour it out." Everyone stood up one after another, lined up and turned upside down. It's really too bad to eat. Even if there are few seasonings, some of them are not cooked yet. Even if you give this noodles to pigs, you have to bring some picky food. Chao Peng pulled him to the side with some unease and whispered, They can't report us, can they?" I heard that the troops don't eat well and will be punished. Fang Huai smiled and whispered, the second lieutenant has been checking his phone and watch several times, probably the cadres at the base. This is an office, and they are all on a commuting system here. If it weren't for us, they would have been off work long ago. You guys are just lazing around here, unable to eat and afraid to throw it away. It's hard for them to say anything, wasting their rest. Maybe their girlfriend is still waiting outside. Chao Ping turned his head and indeed saw the second lieutenant standing up with a clear smile, holding his phone and starting to reply to messages. Sleeping trough, you're too divine. Actually, Fang Huai still hasn't said a word. They led a group of new recruits carrying large and small bags over to hastily prepare noodles without waiting for them to go up and inspect them, indicating that they were in a hurry. The class monitor will teach you that besides training, it is also important to handle people and things in the army. Fang Huai, the old god, finished speaking and stood at the top of the table, turning around and shouting loudly. Line up, line up. 10 new recruits quickly stood in a row behind him. The second lieutenant patted Fang Huai with satisfaction. Goal, new training building, step together, let's go. Downstairs of Sichuan building. Wu Yan, Su Xinliang. Arrive. Zhang Ku. Arrive. Get out of the line and follow class leader Chen. The second lieutenant took the roster and counted the last 2 people, with each of the 6 sergeants leading 1 or 2 new recruits. Bring it back to each of you. There is only one person, Fang Huai, in the 7th company. It was a strange corporal who didn't introduce himself and took the initiative to help retrieve Fang Huai's bag. The moment the corporal took the bag, he was somewhat surprised and then looked at his hand. There was nothing else in his hand. Didn't you bring anything? Report to the class monitor and bring the coat, socks, and shoes issued by the Armed Forces Department, as well as towels, water bottles, and shirts. Is there nothing else? Fang Huai calmly pulled open his camouflage jacket, revealing a gray collar and said, there's also a set of warm underwear. The corporal chuckled and said, no wonder Captain Hao likes you. Speaking, I was also observing Fang Huai's expression and curious about their relationship. Fang Huai smiled shyly and said, thank you, class monitor. The class monitor is annoyed that the new recruits talk too much and is afraid that they won't say anything. The former is too energetic, while the latter is too nervous. Fang Huai is just right. The corporal nodded again and led him upstairs. The constant sound of class monitors and reports inside the building gradually stirred up memories. 2 years in government agencies and almost 3 years in grassroots squadrons. I have called the police more than 700 times, but my hands are useless. When he was determined to retire in the 5th year, he was given a 3rd-class merit, which was of an encouraging nature. In his past life, his uncle transferred him from the squadron back here to take the military academy exam. His academic performance was not good enough, and he did not pass the exam as an ordinary student. His uncle lost him and left him as a sergeant, taking the class monitor backbone exam. However, due to his physical fitness not passing the exam, he returned to the squadron and focused on recording his number of police calls, hoping that the 5-year military service would not be in vain. In terms of internal affairs, skills, and physical fitness, they are all among the middle and lower class. They have a squadron of more than 10 people, 3 classes, and have never served as deputy class leaders until their 5th year. They are useless spokespersons. A person's nest is full of inertia, and for the next decade or so, they have become an uncontrollable mess. They have learned a lot about human relationships and worldly wisdom, and firmly believe that life's failures are all due to, some people have backgrounds, while others have only backs. They have not learned much from their true abilities, and they can tirelessly brainwash young people who are also newcomers to the company with the gossip of society. The skill tree is almost all on the tip of the tongue. He knows the truth about failure and has tried his best to jump out of it, but the pit of rotten people is so addictive that it can't be pulled out. When the group of new recruits were discussing on the train, he also thought about it. He didn't like watching Soldier Assault, he liked watching My Captain My Regiment, because he could find shadows in every different stage of his life in this TV series. At first, it was like breaking a leg and cursing until Meng, who was 25 years old, became annoyed. Later, it was like a mysterious dragon satisfied with having a wife and children on a hot Kong, and finally, it was like Kongya looking for hope in a mirror made of bayonets before death. He wants to be the dragon leader, but the fact is that he is not even as good as the dragon leader's dog named Dogmeat. At least they followed the right big brother. This is another complaint. The inertia of an old rotten person. Let's start over from here. Dong dong. Report. The corporal leading the way knocked on the door and turned to look at him. Fang Huai knew in his heart that this was a sample for him, and he had a bit of a love for talent. Enter. Fang Huai followed into the office and found that Hao Qingbin was not inside. There was only one lieutenant, one captain, and 3 corporal. The class monitor from a previous life, Xiang Ziyuan, was also present. When he came in, he glanced at him but did not speak, and his face seemed somewhat displeased. Hello, leader. Hello, class monitor. Fang Huai stood by an unobstructed wall and shouted loudly. Wang Jian saw no one behind him and casually greeted him with chopsticks. Sit down and have some food. Report to the leader, I've had it. Wang Jian nodded and noticed that it was a worry-free one. He smiled and pointed to an empty stool, saying, Okay, then you can sit here and wait. Your squad leader Hao has gone to the Youth League headquarters. Fang Huai moved, indicating that he heard but did not sit down. The headquarters is on the 3rd floor, and Hao Qingbin probably went to find Lao He. No one here knows the situation of the base better than him. He was transferred here for 2 years. This is a regimental level unit. Every winter, some grassroots non-commissioned officers and officers from various cities and counties are drawn up for training for about 10 days, and then new recruits are trained. Starting from spring, new recruits have stepped down from the team to participate in various local enterprise fire safety training and host various fire safety competitions within the province. The leaders of the new Xinjiang Production and Construction Corps headquarters are all concurrently held by the leaders of the base. His uncle was the previous main officer of the base, and later transferred to the provincial city branch as the deputy branch leader. Are you very familiar with class leader Hao? Xiang Ziyuan spoke abruptly, with 2 freshly squeezed fish bones at the corner of his mouth. He has thick eyebrows and his speech sways like crayon Shin-chan. Report to class monitor Hao picked us up. We didn't know each other before. Sports school students. Report to class monitor, ordinary high school science students. What special talents do you have? Report to the class monitor. No. What about talent? Do you have it? Report to the class monitor. I know how to play the guitar, but I'm not good at it. Xiang Ziyuan put down his chopsticks and looked at him with a calm expression. Why did class leader Hao ask you to come over from our class? Did you ask for it yourself? Fang Huai's heart tightened. I have offended someone after completing my marriage. The story of Grandpa Tai is no longer effective. Why do we have to follow the old class monitor to learn things? There are 3 corporals in this office, and we must not kill ourselves in the future. Report to class monitor, my grandfather is from Jiangxi. Class monitor Hao has a very friendly accent, so I took the initiative to chat with class monitor Hao for a while. Fang Huai gritted his teeth and arranged for his grandfather's birthplace to be moved from Jiangjin to Jiangxi. Everyone understands now. When the fellow villager saw him, tears welled up in his eyes. As class leader Hao wanted to take care of the fellow villager, it was difficult for them to say anything. Wang Jian stood up and said, Okay, put down your backpack or something and wait outside the door. Yes. Fang Huai put his backpack on the bench, put his only prohibited item on the table, his phone, and his camouflage bag on the ground. He walked out of the door and waited for inspection. It's been quite some time, and I'm probably a bit uneasy about Fang Huai, who is a flexible brain that can build relationships. I checked in detail to see if there was any entrainment. Why are you standing here? On the other side of the corridor, Hao Qingbin walked over with 2 pages of paper. Class monitor, check inside. Fang Huai whispered. Oh, Hao Qingbin pushed the door in. In just 2 minutes, he came out again with Fang Huai's camouflage bag and backpack. Of course, the phone is gone, and Hao Qingbin didn't explain it either. It's probably because he feels like he has a family like this, so he must have a clear idea. You don't have enough things to bring, go rest in class while I go buy things for you. As Hao Qingbin spoke, he led him into class. Class 9, in fact, is diagonally opposite to the platoon, with a distance of 2 steps. Hao Qingbin pushed the door and turned on the light, and the 2 of them immediately sat up. The one on the left upper bunk inside is slightly chubby, with acne all over his face and sleepy eyes. The flat round head on the lower right side of the door was dark and had an unnatural expression. After 2 seconds of stagnation, he pulled the blanket up again. Fang Huai looked at the half-pulled-out toilet paper on his upper bunk, smiled, and quickly suppressed it. Hao Qingbin walked inside calmly, but as he passed by his bedside, he kicked his bed frame with his foot. Bang! The whole bed was shaking, while Fang Huai chuckled and couldn't help but speculate whether this panicked brother would stop moving in the future. There is not much space in the class, and there is a table by the wall when entering. There are 3 vertical beds on the left, 2 on the right, and 1 horizontally on the innermost side, with bunks on top and bottom. The so-called class refers to the dormitory. As long as there is nothing to do, the activity space is also within these 10 or so square meters. Hao Qingbin placed his camouflage bag on the innermost bunk and turned to ask him. Fang Huai, you came early. Choose a bed. Just this one, class monitor. Fang Huai pointed to the one in front of Hao Qingbin. Hao Qingbin casually placed his backpack on the lower bunk and turned his head, saying, the 2 of them from Fujian arrived 2 days earlier than you. Let's chat and introduce each other, and I'll go buy you some toiletries. Class monitor, I don't have money. Fang Huai said with a puzzled expression. I know, you can repay me when you pay the allowance. Hao Qingbin waved his hand and walked out. The room froze for a moment. The pointed head of the lower right bunk stared in the direction of the door, his gaze startled and uncertain. He pulled his hand under the blanket, his gaze wandering, as if to determine whether life was still complete or not. The little chubby man on the upper left bunk watched as his gaze gradually cleared up and he began to accumulate hope. Brother. Are you smoking? Chapter 7. No smoke, no fire. My name is Fang Huai. You are listening at novelfull.audio. No smoke or fire. My name is Fang Huai. After Fang Huai finished speaking, he walked inside and began to pull out the armed belt from his backpack, tidying up the bed. Hey, Fang Huai, my name is Yu Tao. We came earlier than you have to call us class monitor. The thin and pointed black head, who looked at him with some African ancestry, regained consciousness and stood up from the bed. Fang Huai looked back at him and found that he should be quite young. He smiled and said, hello, class monitor Yu. His name is Chen Zhongqiang. Yu Tao was somewhat arrogant, and pointed to the chubby little man on the upper right bunk to introduce himself. Fang Huai. Chen Ban. Chen Zhongqiang quickly shook his head and said, my name is Chen Zhongqiang, don't call me class monitor. They are all class monitors, they are all class monitors. Fang Huai responded with his mouth and quickly arranged the bed sheets. He then turned around and searched for a neutral pen in the desk box. He took out the pen core and used the pointed end to clamp all the sheets into the edge of the bed. Soon, the white sheets tightened tightly. My grass, brother, your movements are so smooth. how did you think of using a pen to tidy the sheets? Yu Tao was surprised at first glance, and it was obvious that he had been quite relaxed these past 2 days. That's right, Hao Qingbin picked up the soldiers from Chongqing and was still dozing off in the car today. He should have arrived in Chongqing overnight last night, but the squad leader was not there. These two have probably been out of control for a whole day. Fang Huai walked over to his bedside and took a look. The sheets were so messy that ants had to be divided into several areas to enter. He smiled and handed over the pen case. Do you two want to tidy up? Yu Tao immediately shook his head, straightened his body on the bed, covered his head with a blanket, and entered a state of rest. There was a muffled sound coming from the blanket. No, I won't do it until tomorrow. Chen Zhongqiang across from him said, I want it, you can use it for me. Fang Huai handed over his pen and reminded him, Captain Yu, if you sleep like this, the sheets will definitely be wrinkled tomorrow and you won't be able to tidy them up even if you want to. There will be an internal evaluation then. Yu Tao exposed his head and couldn't help but say, it's impossible. I didn't even manage the inside for the past 2 days. The fire department must be different from other troops. That's because the people haven't arrived yet. The receiving officer told me that everyone will be here tomorrow. You can take a look then. Fang Huai's words fell, and Chen Zhongqiang across from him once again showed his eyes shining brightly. Will it arrive tomorrow? Fang Huai glanced at him and said, don't expect it. Quit it. When people arrive, management will become stricter. Even if they give you cigarettes, you won't have space to smoke. You've been thinking about it for months, and even if you're off the team, you won't be allowed to smoke. Toilet. Chen Zhongqiang stubbornly said. Toilet. You'll know then. Fang Huai waved his hand, too lazy to remind these two fools, and even if he didn't mention it, it was okay. He also wanted to smoke. On the days of mandatory smoking cessation, I'm afraid there's such a guy next to me who keeps nagging and feeling even more uncomfortable. Hey, you know the army so well. You used to work as a militia in the Armed Forces Department. Yu Tao rolled over from bed and said with a gossiping expression on his face. I have a cousin who served as a soldier, Fang Huai casually said. It's not good not to explain, after all, there are some things that he is quite familiar with and not top secret information, and he is not prepared to cover them up. Just this way, due to various contextual requirements, his entire family has been arranged into the army by him. Whenever a group of people sit down to talk about him, they will find that he is a true military family. The task has been completed and there is no need to worry about it. If it's a big deal, we can make it up later. Oh. Then you know we're off the team. Yu Tao was speaking when the door opened. Hao Qingbin walked in, glanced at Yu Tao's dog house, and handed the plastic bag in his hand to Fang Huai. Put the things in the basin, and I'll take you to the restroom. Fang Huai took it and glanced at it. There was a piece of soap, shampoo, toothpaste, and toothbrush. Thank you, class monitor. Hao Qingbin looked at the neat bed behind Fang Huai again and couldn't help but nod. Can you fold a blanket? Report to the class monitor, a little bit. This is the truth. Fang Huai has been away from the military for 10 years, and on the first day of his discharge, he never tidied up his bed again. His skill in making blankets can only be said to be a bit lacking. Nowadays, there are 4 layers of blankets, which is different from the previous 3 layers. Hao Qingbin speculated that it was probably Fang Huai's father who taught him, but he was afraid that Fang Huai would follow the internal affairs standards of his father's era in everything. Over the years, many standards have changed. If there are misspellings everywhere on a piece of paper, it's better than a blank sheet of paper. Report to the class monitor, I know, Fang Huai nodded and said. Oh. It was also taught by your father. Hao Qingbin exclaimed in surprise. Fang Huai shook his head and said, I like to go online, and I learned a lot from watching online. Just as the lies were spoken, Yu Tao next to him stopped. Didn't you just say that your cousin taught you? Old strategy of throwing thunder. Fang Huai immediately counterattacked and said, Captain Yu, I didn't say that. Hao Qingbin wrinkled his old face, turned his head to look at Yu Tao, and then turned around to ask. What did you call him just now? Fang Huai said with a hint of embarrassment, Captain Yu. I just said he came 2 days early, and I have to call him squad leader. I thought the military regulations were different now. Class monitor, I'm joking with him. Yu Tao immediately screamed. Hao Qingbin's skin smiles but his flesh doesn't smile. 2 minutes later, the door of Class 9 opened and Yu Tao stood by the bed, looking at the bedsheet that had been torn off and thrown aside with a bitter expression of eating rotten garlic. Give you 10 minutes, and also, clean up before going to bed. Hao Qingbin left a sentence and led Fang Huai out. Fang Huai was quite at ease all the way. At least he hasn't done anything about fetching water and washing his feet yet. Don't be too enthusiastic today, and don't be too cruel tomorrow. The enthusiasm for welcoming the new year may be late, but it will never be absent. The next day, at 7 p.m. The training base was bright, and on the playground of Nuoda, 3 buses led 5 military trucks into it. Red police camps, red cars, red youth, red me, how many times we sweat like rain on the training ground, how many times we silently hold on. We calmly hold on, one by one, their faces flushed with the air conditioning got off the car. Class monitor. Come on, brother, give me your bag. New recruits who arrived early. Pop 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 pop. Integrated service of sound, light, and electricity. The applause of the new recruits welcoming them along the way merged with the firefighter song on the radio, and the lights shone on the slightly reflective ground just after a light rain, shining brightly on the military camp. The class monitors are providing enthusiastic service. This is the second batch of new recruits they welcomed today, the one they welcomed half an hour ago, standing in front of the new training building in a bustling manner. Compared to Fang Huai and his companions who came in small groups, this is the true main force of Guizhou fire protection this year. I didn't feel it in my past life, but now Fang Huai, who has gradually reintegrated into the army, feels what it feels like to see these new recruits getting off the bus. Like an obsessive-compulsive disorder patient looking at a pile of disorderly missing corner blocks. The hat is loose, the armor is loose, the belt is crooked, and the winter camouflage is wrinkled. The black and thin shell of the major stood on the stairs of the adjacent auditorium building, his hand hanging by the fence, quietly watching the scene. It wasn't until everyone got off the car that a loud sound came out. Lu Mangong, gather the whole team. Divide into teams. Echoes resounded loudly. Lu Mangong ran to the front of the team and shouted loudly. All gather. The entire formation began to surge irregularly. Oh, you stepped on my shoelace. Walk, walk, go over there. Wait, wait. A figure squatting down to tie shoelaces can block the progress of a large group of people. The class monitors dispersed to the outskirts of the team to help the new recruits adjust their formation. Quickly, a large formation gradually took shape, with the newcomers who arrived first standing at the far right of the team, and the squad leaders standing on both sides of the entire team, grasping the distance between the ranks. Look to the right. Align. Lu Mangong let out a loud roar, and the entire team quickly widened according to the distance between the squad leaders, leaving some space for those around them. Look forward. Take a break. Those who read it, stand at attention and stand behind each class monitor. One class after another. A corporal stepped out and arrived at an open space next to the line. Sun Yu. Here, a new recruit shouted at the top of his throat. Zhang Liang. Arrive. This sound is even more magnificent. The major above nodded slightly, but many people saw it. Zhang Xianchao. Arrive. Wu Wei. Arrive. The new recruits behind seemed to understand the rules, and when they called their names, they all used their utmost strength to pinch their throats, making their voices appear high. 20 minutes later, 9 companies and 80 class codes were packed. There are 10 students in each class, at best, 800 people. In fact, there is a 10th company with more than 20 people. After the new recruits finish their training, they will go to Kunming Command School and be seconded to stand guard. These people, after leaving the team, will become old soldiers and deserve to enjoy the temple. Of course, in his previous life, Fang Huai was also a member of the Peixiang Temple. Within a few months of joining the squadron, he was transferred to the office of the training base, where he typed documents and worked as a clerk every day. Every day, he mixed with a few female soldiers and focused on preparing for the exam. On days without training, the food provided by the army to support his people once made him grow from 140 pounds to over 180. Each company and class should bring back their inspection points. At 8.15, they should gather at the entrance of the cafeteria. Wang Jian quickly ran to the front of Fang Huai's team. 7 companies, classes 1 to 9, bring them back one by one. A class monitor is dispatched. Class 1, walk in unison. The entire open space, under the orderly command of the regiment, company, and squad, went upstairs in an orderly manner. As soon as I entered the stairs, the queue began to scatter. The 2 new recruits in front of Fang Huai's class quickly began to discuss. Hey, I heard in the car that the People's Liberation Army's soldiers are all from the new recruits company in the regiment first. Yeah, many of their divisions have been converted into brigades now. Unlike us, they all recruit new recruits one regiment at a time. Hao Qingbin in front turned around, clearly wanting to get angry, but still controlled the volume and said. Keep to the right when going upstairs, don't whisper to each other. Limited power. Yes, I heard they can touch guns when they join the company. Fang Huai looked at the 2 brothers in front who had lowered their voices a bit, but still occasionally turned their heads to chat. He was already calculating how to avoid being implicated by them in the future. Fang Huai, who had been staring at the face of the class monitor, saw a smile on Hao Qingbin's face when he entered the class. 10 new recruits squeezed into a rather cramped space, but 2 couldn't get in and stood at the door. Hao Qingbin helped one by one tidy up the camouflage bag outside the door, unloaded the backpack onto the bed, and Fang Huai and Chen Zhongqiang stood close, quickly helping. Soon, the room became spacious. Come and sit down, everyone, Hao Qingbin said. The new recruits sat down one by the bed, looking around. There is no ponytail hasn't been sent yet. Hao Qingbin looked kindly and said, let's introduce ourselves. Chen Zhongqiang, you're the first one in class, you're the first one. Yes. Chen Zhongqiang immediately stood up, and Yu Tao next to him, as an elderly person in the workplace, also realized that he was the next one and sat up straight with some pride. Prioritizing speaking on this matter, for some reason, always brings a sense of superiority. Class Monitor, comrades, my name is Chen Zhongqiang, and I am from Zhangzhou, Fujian. We conscripted early and arrived 2 days early. From now on, everyone will be comrades. Comrades learn from each other, communicate more, and communicate more. There is something, but not much, half of a sentence is nonsense. Fang Huai secretly commented on it. Chen Zhongqiang, are you a high school student? Do you have any special skills? Chen Zhongqiang thought for a while. Class monitor. Does basketball count? Hao Qingbin nodded and said, all right, we will arrange the ball game later. If you have the ability, you can represent the company in the game. Chen Zhongqiang immediately hesitated and said, well. That's not true. I just know how to fight, but I'm not good at it. Hao Qingbin sighed slightly, his face remained unchanged, and he waved his hand up and down. Next, Yu Tao. Arrive. Yu Tao stood up and said, Class monitor, my name is Yu Tao. Hao Qingbin raised his head and said, "Let me introduce you to my comrades." "What are you doing with me?" Yu Tao chuckled, turned around, and pretended to salute. "Comrades, my name is Yu Tao. I'm also from Zhangzhou, Fujian. I'm good at management. I used to be the deputy class monitor." Lying trough. Fang Huai didn't expect that this product would really dare to be sold. Today, the three of them stayed in class all day. Yu Tao was brainwashing him and Chen Zhongxiang, saying that he was suitable to be the deputy class monitor. He physically convinced both of them, and Fang Huai was the first to agree that if there was a vote, he would definitely choose him as the deputy class monitor before he gave up. Actually, Fang Huai also knows that the decision-making power for which election came from is solely with the class monitor. The class monitor brought a dog today and said it was the deputy class monitor, which is called obedience consciousness. In his previous life, Fang Huai's class did not have a deputy class leader. "Yu Tao, you're in junior high school and just turned 17, right? What are you managing? Sit down." Hao Qingbin felt a bit overwhelmed by his energy. "Class monitor. I've studied vocational school before. I just didn't graduate." Yu Tao muttered suddenly. Zhaozhuyuan.com. Everyone else laughed. Hao Qingbin didn't speak and glanced at Yu Tao, who immediately sat down in frustration. "Fang Huai, you come." Hao Qingbin shouted directly. Fang Huai had already figured it out, stood up, and was ready to give a brief introduction before sitting down. A line of words suddenly appeared before my eyes. Task. Let the whole class remember your name. Limited time of 3 minutes, no punishment for failure, Fang Huai. Ah. Fang Huai stood up, unable to think of what to say for a moment. He cleared his throat and scanned his eyes. Those two in the corner are a little absent-minded. "Hello comrades, everyone. My name is Fang Huai. The square is square. The Huai River is Huai. 3 o'clock water is on the side. On the right is a beautiful spot." Fang Huai looked at the bewildered expression on the face of a new recruit and had the intention to change his name. Huai. This word is really difficult to introduce. This special system, you deliberately don't want me to complete it, do you? Hao Qingbin spoke up and interrupted him. They just know how to call it, talk about their strengths. There is illiteracy in the testing team, and the task cannot be completed. Do you want to change the task? I'm Nima. Fang Huai rolled his eyes inwardly. Are you asking me to do this because I am illiterate? Do I have to go through literacy first? Exchange and exchange. Task. Make all the veterans of the 7th Company form unique memory points for you. Fang Huai clenched his fists tightly. Just remember the name, remember more. What is a memory point? How about I go rush to the company tonight? Don't even talk about veterans, tonight everyone in the company can hear my howls, so there must be some memory points. Chapter 8. Forces me to move forward. You are listening at novelfull.audio. It's not impossible either. My strengths include using computer office software, basketball, football, and more. Fang Huai put aside his only talent, guitar playing and singing, and said it honestly. There are many and diverse characteristics, but they are not called memory points. Hao Qingbin's eyes lit up and he said, computer office software. How skilled are you? Basketball and football are not uncommon, but knowing how to use a computer. It depends on how skilled you are. If you can do paperwork, it's a treasure. A few days ago, the documents in the company stayed up late every day to organize the electronic version of the new soldier files, but there was a lot of complaints. The company commander's instructor also had a meeting with them, hoping that the sergeant who could use Word and Excel could help take over the shift. As soon as this task was assigned, the sergeants became blind spots and began to play dumb. Where is the power button on your computer? Not only do they know how to play CS, typing slowly, even if they are willing to teach documents, no one is willing to learn. Just kidding, even bringing new recruits during the day makes me hoarse, and I have to work overtime at night. Who is willing to do it? Fang Huai is certainly aware of this matter. Not to mention now, when he is about to retire, communication soldiers and documents who can proficiently operate various office software and communication equipment are still in high demand, and there are also specialized communication soldier competitions every year. Class monitor, I know most of the office software on the market. Hao Qingbin finally showed a visible smile on his face. Okay, you can come with me to the headquarters office later. The other recruits immediately smelled the scent of welfare. The new recruit who had been talking in front of Fang Huai when he went upstairs just now immediately stood up, somewhat confident. Report to the class monitor, I also know how to use the computer. Double happiness at home. Hao Qingbin nodded and said, okay, you can go too. Just in time, could you introduce yourself first? Report to class monitor, my name is Jiang Peng. Oh. You are Jiang Peng, from Yunnan, right? Have you studied for an associate degree? Yes, class monitor. Jiang Peng saw that the class monitor knew him, and his heart surged with countless speculations, feeling a bit spirited. Class monitor, my name is Jiang Peng, 21 years old, graduated from college, from Kunming, Yunnan. I see your information, it belongs to Tsujing, right? Hao Qingbin interrupted. Jiang Peng's face showed a slight awkwardness. Class monitor. My grandfather is from Kunming, and I usually live with him. Fang Huai laughed as he listened. Wuzhong Xingye, fellow disciples of the same path. But what's the use of saying it's from Kunming? Does it appear that the family environment is better? Hao Qingbin waved his hand and said, just say the location of your household registration. It's from Tsujing. I like singing and can play guitar. I'm also quite proficient in computers. I used to be a deputy class monitor in high school. Jiang Peng quickly said a few advantages, burying the embarrassment just now. Jiang Peng is actually a bit older, knowing that the competition vice monitor needs to first show some advantages. But it's still a bit immature. Hao Qingbin sees through but doesn't speak out. Who hasn't read for a few days? In school, class cadres are all selected based on their grades. How could they really become deputy class leaders? Nowadays, as for getting into a vocational college. If we really choose the deputy class monitor, this Fang Huai looks more suitable. As Hao Qingbin's thoughts arose, Fang Huai's eyes beside him widened. Task. Become the deputy squad leader of the new recruits. This task is completed and the military merit system is activated, military merit system. Do you have any subsystems? The military merit system will reward the host with honors above commendation. Fang Huai's adrenaline began to secrete, and the drowsiness caused by the gradually quiet and warm atmosphere in the room disappeared completely. This is not a military merit system issue. His military achievements are rare, and if he is commended or above, he is considered an excellent soldier, or above. Even if he serves as a soldier for another 5 years, he may not receive many rewards. But since there is a military merit system, are there any other systems? What is the reward? Moreover, it can also take on multiple tasks at the same time. That's a lot more likely to complete the task. Between thoughts, lightning, fire, and stones. 21 years old, do you have a girlfriend? If we were to get into a military academy, we would be preparing to get married, said Jiang Peng with pride. Oh. I need to take the military academy exam. Do you have any books? Non-college students who are promoted or admitted to military academies are required to take basic cultural exams, including a standard guidebook for Chinese, mathematics, English, physics, chemistry, and politics. Yes, it's in the bag. Jiang Peng pointed to the door outside. Well, becoming a military officer through exams is a great ambition. If you don't receive extra training on weekends, you can read more books. Thank you, class monitor. I will work hard. After Jiang Ping finished speaking, he felt like he had become a military officer, and when he sat down, he had a somewhat spirited posture. Hao Qingbin seemed to remember something and his eyes wandered around. What do you have to take the exam for? For those without books, Lianbu has a set of yellow documents. You can say that Lianbu will help you make copies. After a while, no one spoke. Hao Qingbin was slightly disappointed. After all, bringing out an officer is also considered a matter of face recognition. Jiang Peng's face became even more proud. Fang Huai, you graduated from high school, right? You're not very old, and you can still take the undergraduate military academy exam. Why don't you take it? Fang Huai regained his senses from the shock just now. Report to class monitor. My family asked me to take the exam, and I have books. After, my family will bring them to me. Class monitor, I have just joined the army, so if I have time, just do a good job in training. In his past life, it seems that after being awarded a title, his uncle came to see him and brought him a set of books, which were left by a top scholar. They were filled with notes and were definitely much more precious than ordinary books. Moreover, the new Army Corps often conducts extra training on weekends and rarely takes a break. If they don't quickly lie on their ponies to catch up on their drowsiness, why bother reading books? Is it good to have a big head when you see a book? Oh, that's okay, Hao Qingbin nodded again after hearing Fang Huai's words, feeling a little more favorable in his heart. This child gave him a good feeling, with ideas, plans, but not too flamboyant and down-to-earth. Hao Qingbin looked at the corner of the wall, who was about to fall asleep. That little one, you come. The skinny white boy was patted by the new recruit next to him, his eyes confused, like a newborn baby. He slowly opened his eyes and found that everyone was looking at him, which startled him. Ah! Me. Hao Qingbin was both angry and funny. Yes. You. Introduce yourself. First wipe your saliva. The new soldier immediately wiped his saliva with his sleeve and stood up. Bang. Close contact between the head and the bed frame. Ha ha ha, burst into laughter. Fang Huai also smiled. Every move of this child felt a bit like animated performance art. My name is Pinyin Kirui, from Bijie, Guizhou. I don't have any special skills. Pinyin Kirui rubbed her head and said slowly. What about hobbies? No. Hao Qingbin said somewhat dissatisfied. Yes, sleeping. Ha ha ha. Hao Qingbin couldn't help but laugh and waved his hand repeatedly. Okay, sit down. Sit down, next one. The new recruit next to him stood up, short and thin, looking rough and old, just like he often does farm work at home, with a simple smile on his face. Report, comrades, my name is Zhao Bing, posted by FAI. My childhood aspiration is to become a soldier. I listen to radio at home and have no other hobbies. Hao Qingbin frowned and said, where is it? FAI. Funan FAI. Oh. Huaihua, Hunan, right. Yes, class monitor. Yu Tao learned excitedly and said, Hunan FAI. Oh, Funan. Hao Qingbin finally couldn't resist and reached out to give him a chestnut. There are two people in the room holding their heads and rubbing them. Next. The thin and high-tech soldiers next to Zhao Bing stood up. Class monitor, my name is Lu Zixin. As he spoke, the door opened with a thud. Captain Wang Jian revealed his head and said, Lao Hao, it's your class now. Hao Qingbin nodded, got up, and walked out of the door. The two of them carried the new recruits' large and small bags to the company headquarters. I came back soon, with a smile on my face. You didn't bring a lot of cash, did you? Everyone, look at me, look at you, shake their heads one after another. That's okay, let's continue with the introduction. When we were gathering downstairs, we heard a big news. There was a new recruit in Class 8 who brought over 300,000 yuan in cash. It is said that a large group of relatives in the Armed Forces Department were afraid that he would not do well in the army. This 30,000 yuan was given to him, and that 50,000 yuan was given to him. The platoon dare not keep it safe. Tomorrow, they will have to take the new recruit to the bank and deposit it in their card. The entire 7 companies exploded, and on the way downstairs to gather, everyone was discussing. My name is Han Yong, right? I heard his father is the provincial agent of King Furong. Nima, the wealthy even have different units of measurement for pocket money. Zhang Wei, is it from your class, right? Big brother. Can't we hold on to it well in the future? Give him a thumbs up. Captain Pan just scolded him for half an hour. Tell him to be a rich man and not come to the army. Right, right. I've heard about it since I was at home. People can't stand this kind of wealthy family coming to the army. It's going to be tough in the future. Fang Huai followed behind with a burst of emotion. Do you still have the mood to worry about others being upset? In the future, you will know what, Dad's happiness, you can't imagine it. Hey, I'm young and have no worries left. How can I live in the future? Welcome noodles, everyone was eating happily. Tomato and egg, green pepper and minced meat, 2 pots of Laozi, the taste is so good that it's one piece, much higher than the soy sauce mixed noodles that Fang Huai had yesterday. I don't know how much higher it is. 7 or 8 cafeteria aunties kept busy, feeding everyone to their fill. Fang Huai has also seen many jokes in his past life, saying that the welcome faces of the People's Liberation Army were all filled with small yellow basins for washing faces and feet. Looking at their large aluminum basin, which is over half a meter wide, it's very professional. That is to say, I usually put some dishwashing detergent behind the cafeteria and let new recruits wash dishes inside. Sometimes the waste water can't fit in the bucket, so it's better to fill it up temporarily. Is there a lot of fat in the waste water that pigs can grab and eat, but humans can't eat it? Don't think too much about the equipment that constantly appears in various places in the army. It's uncomfortable to think too much. Fang Huai looked at the experienced multi-purpose aluminum basin, and there were still some oil splashes on the soup noodles. He managed to eliminate the distractions in his mind and eat a bowl of soup. During this period, Yu Tao also prepared to add a bowl for him to eat more. Only those new recruits who have already experienced the cafeteria food due to their early arrival can know how precious this meal is. There are 2 canteens in the base. Their new recruits' cafeteria is a large cafeteria, with 11 people at a table, 6 dishes and 1 soup. It cannot be said to be unpleasant, but there is no choice, and there is more food than vegetables. 100 meters across from the main cafeteria is the small cafeteria, which is served by internal personnel of the base. It is not an exaggeration to say that the buffet is an Air Force meal. The base is mainly composed of civilian cadres, with more school officials than lieutenants and more lieutenants than soldiers. The average level of thieves per person is high, and the food standards are also high. Each meal consists of more than 10 large self-service dishes, with at least 2 types of seafood. There are 2 canteens on both sides, with Africa and Europe on one side. The wastewater in the base is mainly brought from the European region, and there is hardly any oil residue left in the African region. Today, during the Chinese New Year in the African region, hundreds of new recruits were burping themselves from eating, and surprisingly, there were still quite a few left in the big bowl filled with minced meat. Fang Huai guessed blindly and said that he should still eat this tomorrow morning. If he doesn't overdo it, he won't care enough. Hao Qingbin led the team back to the class and immediately called the new recruits to the bathroom. He then called Fang Huai and Jiangpeng to the company office. Pushing open the door, there was a platoon leader named Wang Jian and a chubby black corporal inside. The two of them were roasting around the stove, with a circle of peanuts placed on it. Hao Qingbin looked at an empty bed in the corner of the wall. Wang Lian, is Director Liang not here? Wang Jian turned his head and threw the peanut shells in his hand into the trash can. He grabbed a handful from the table and handed it to him, then looked at Fang Huai and Jiang Peng behind Hao Qingbin. After a while, he whispered in a low voice. My wife is sick at home and hospitalized here. We all have matters to attend to. Even if there are any issues at home. Please understand. Hao Qingbin picked up an overheated peanut, pulled one and threw it into his mouth, saying. If you need to take care of someone who is hospitalized for a long time, it's best to take a leave from the regimental headquarters and have someone else come. Even with many new recruits, we can't always let you come alone. Wang Jian waved his hand and said, they are all comrades in arms. Director Liang is still from the military academy and my district team. If you can help us, please help us at Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com. There's also Huang Yi here, and there's nothing we can't finish. Speaking, he pointed to Black Fat Corporal. The sergeant named Huang Yi immediately widened his eyes, withdrew from the bench, and looked at the computer beside him. Wang Lian, you can't greet me alone. I've been working overtime for a few days now, and I didn't work like that when I was in the squadron. Wang Jian smiled and patted Huang Yi's shoulder, saying, we take turns doing it. We didn't ask you to do it alone. Don't worry, we definitely have one of our excellent class leaders. Upon hearing these words, Hao Qingbin immediately looked back at Fang Huai and Jiang Peng with some pride. I knew you couldn't finish your busy schedule, here. Life Force, I brought you. You two know how to use computers. Wang Jian and Huang Yi's eyes were bright and bright. Jiang Peng immediately took a slight step forward and blocked in front of Fang Huai. Wang Jian lowered his head and took a peck at the peanut shell, then looked up at Jiang Peng with some hesitation. Do you two know how to use computers? Are you proficient? Jiang Peng said with a somewhat reserved expression, report to the platoon leader, I type quickly. I can also use documents. How about creating a table? Is it possible? Wang Jian continued. Jiang Peng hesitated for a moment. It should be. No problem. Wang Jian needs to ask again, but Huang Yi quickly interrupted, not wanting to miss the opportunity to attract coolies. Hey, Wang Lian, don't be too demanding. Just be able to type. When typing a report, as long as there are no typos, you can also help. Let him give it a try. Wang Jian nodded and stood up at the computer desk to find 2 statistics sheets of betting, handing them to Jiang Peng. Can you fill out the form? Jiang Peng picked up the watch and carefully asked, does this have a template? Chapter 9. The hunting begins. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Have Huang Yishuan pointed to the computer and said, if you turn on the computer, it will be on the desktop. Jiang Peng easily lowered his body to reach the host. Huang Yi's expression changed and he said, you're on the phone. Just turn on the monitor. It's too late. 5 minutes later, a group of people crossed their waists. Jiang Peng lowered his hands and watched as the computer slowly turned on. Huang Yi's eyes were blank and he kept muttering, sleeping slot, it took more than an hour to make it. Why didn't it be saved? Sleeping slot. Jiang Peng bit his teeth and said, class monitor, don't worry, I'll stay up late tonight and make it for you. Fang Huai stood behind, lost in thought. One carrying a quilt and a watch, one with 90 new recruits, except for the model, everything else is the same. Can it be done for over an hour? Huang Yi's level is not enough to be my disciple, right? Wang Jian stood up with great righteousness. Forget it, the new comrade is going to bed. Huang Yi, teach me and I'll do it. Then everyone gathered around the computer with their hands behind their backs, their eyes fixed and their brows furrowed, as if they were trying to solve the problem of precise guidance for atomic bombs. Huang Yi decided to let Jiang Peng give it a try and opened a word with a frame, interlaced lines, and listed items. Get up. You come, just fill in these things. The confidence on Jiang Peng's face returned, he picked up the paper, like a mathematician, and began to input step by step according to the information filled out on the table. Typing. I can barely get by. Huang Yi's evaluation is not as good as that of Captain Wang. The font size is too large, change it, Huang Yi reminded. Jiang Peng looked up and found that it was indeed too big. He searched for it in confusion for a long time, and finally found the brand name. He changed it to number 4, but was not satisfied. He then changed it to number 5 and continued playing. This newbie operation makes Fang Huai's 10 toes tightly grasp the ground. What about the previous one? Don't change it. It's different in size. Huang Yi reminded, also realizing that this new recruit really doesn't know how to use office software, only knows how to type. Jiang Peng exclaimed, oh, then deleted all the previous typing, changed the font again, and typed them one by one again. Hao Qingbin nodded as he watched, at least typing on the keyboard. Faster than him. But Wang Jian is not too satisfied. Huang Yi is even more dissatisfied, but he doesn't want to say anything. The quiet office suddenly rang out. Class monitor, let me do it. Everyone is quite tired standing here. Everyone turned around, Fang Huai looked helpless. Hao Qingbin made the first decision. Jiang Peng, get up and let Fang Huai give it a try. Jiang Peng wanted to argue something, but when he saw a large blank space on the computer and a thick stack of paper in his hand, he had to stand up. Looking at Fang Huai, his eyes were slightly dissatisfied. Fang Huai was too lazy to pay attention to him. He took control of the situation, sat down, turned around, and first questioned Huang Yi. Class monitor, why don't you use Excel when there is something to summarize data? Huang Yi let out a quack. It's all the same. How could it be the same? Fang Huai didn't say much and then sighed. Looking back in the search, I opened all the recently used documents in one go and searched for them carefully in the table. Everyone noticed something was wrong. This operation was clearly not completed by a mouse, and Fang Huai was very proficient in using shortcut keys. After a while, I found a document. Do you have all the names of the new recruits in this class schedule? Fang Huai roughly checked the table and said. Huang Yi's eyes lit up, he clapped his hands suddenly, and then said, my form is an old version. But I need to check, some people have already changed shifts. 9 classes. 90 people, simple. Fang Huai pulled and copied all the names, opened Excel, and created a new table. I previewed the print and it looks much better than before. Everyone looked at each other a bit. The most awkward person in the office this time is not Jiang Peng, but Huang Yi. Wang Jian also questioned with a look on his face. They seem to be more familiar than you. Fang Huai slid the mouse over the left label of the name bar, and the mouse changed to Ctrl+C. Just adjust the name a little bit. This garment has the most size L, use all L, just adjust a part. Hats. 56, Captain Huang, input the calculation formula for statistics here. For the next 10 minutes or so, everyone was very quiet. Fang Huai was operating while explaining, and Huang Yi felt in a daze that the communication senior class leader of the detachment was teaching him, getting closer and closer. Fang Huai's familiarity and efficiency in using shortcut keys are astonishing. No, we can only make these few people in the office point fingers. Alright, do you have any other forms? I made them for you before turning off the lights. No, there will be tomorrow. Are you typing fast? Can you help me with it? Huang Yi's tone had already been slightly negotiated. No problem, I used 5 strokes, it's quite fast. Fang Huai said as someone patted his face. Hao Qingbin reached out and handed him a handful of peanuts, his eyes unable to conceal admiration. Young man, keep it hidden. Fang Huai returned to simplicity in just 1 second and chuckled, report to the class monitor. I have a computer at home, and I used to be curious about learning something. Hao Qingbin waved his hand and said, you're just being humble, kid. Huang Yi bent over with his hands behind his back and said, what else can you do? Fang Huai casually clicked on a few Microsoft software on the desktop and said, I know all of these. WPS and PowerPoint are quite familiar with them, mainly used for making projection courseware and CAD drawings. However, it seems that you don't have this computer. If you're interested, class monitor, I can teach you. Huang Yi quickly exchanged glances with Wang Jian. It's him. Well, the technology is good. In the future, come to the company and cultivate it well. Don't neglect it. According to Wang Jian's leadership summary, the task of working hard has become cultivation, and PUA technology has been mastered very proficiently. Hey! Don't let them work for nothing. Hao Qingbin stared and said with his hands behind his back. Wang Jian waved his hand and said, no problem. I'll treat you to a late-night snack. Okay, you two should go back to class first, Hao Qingbin waved his hand in satisfaction. Yes, class monitor. Fang Huai found that the completion rate of the task was already 3/12, and he smiled happily. What will be the next reward? Returning to class, as soon as I entered the door, 8 pairs of expectant eyes appeared. Everyone finished washing up, tidied up the bed and sink, feeling bored and waiting for those two to bring some new news. Going to the company to work overtime means there may be some resources in the future that everyone may not have access to. Smoke, snacks, and so on. Sorry brothers, I didn't choose him. Your happy life will depend on him in the future. Jiangping pointed at Fang Huai and finished speaking, then sat on his own bed, with a strong sense of sorrow in his eyes. Fang Huai smiled and handed out 2 peanuts in his hand. Just give me the peanuts and say that I can have a late-night snack for work in the future. If the platoon leader agrees, I will designate some for you to bring back. Big brother, can I bring a cigarette? Chen Zhongxiang, who was in the upper bunk, lamented. A few smokers also looked excited. They didn't smoke all night, and their withdrawal reactions began to erupt, making their hearts itch. Yeah. Fang Huai, can you bring a cigarette back? We'll take 2 bites each. Fang Huai rolled his eyes and said, you all really want to fart. Even if cigarettes get into my hands, they are still prohibited items. If you want to smoke, you can only wait for the class monitor to give them a hand. Let's do good training, and when the opportunity is right, I'll risk my life to give it a try to the class monitor. Okay. Good brother. It's up to you. When they were washing up, they had already inquired with the other class leaders, and they had already said hello to the other class leaders. Smoking is something that we should not think about in the future, it's impossible. The smokers were all plunged into grief. At present, there is someone in class 9 who can go to the company headquarters to obtain resources. It's better to have hope than no hope. Don't talk to other classes. It's rumored that there won't be any action. The lights will be turned off soon, go to sleep. Fang Huai said, holding a small green basin filled with various toiletries and carrying a thermos at the door. He turned off the light and walked out of the class door. Wash up at 9:30, turn off the lights at 10, and by now, you have basically finished washing up and returned to work. Jiangping also followed up with a basin. The washroom is quite large, with around 20 faucets on both sides of the wash basin, all of which are cold water. The hot water needs to go to the nearby hot water indirectly. Fang Huai took an empty thermos and took a hot water bottle, poured some into the basin, tested the water temperature, and handed it to Jiangping. Thank you, Jiangping said politely. Fang Huai waved his hand and said, "It's okay, give me the kettle after you use it." "How was your academic performance in high school before?" "Not good." "What about sports?" "I've heard that there will be a physical fitness test in 2 days." "Not good either." Fang Huai took the shampoo bought by the class monitor, squeezed some, and began to dry it. Jiang Peng let go of his worries. "I guess I used to love playing with computers and didn't have any other strengths." When a person enters a new environment and realizes that their previous poor self is the fate of a chicken head, not a phoenix tail, they start to have new grievances. Fang Huai has a high school education and is also admitted to military academies. He also plays computer games well, making him a formidable opponent. Jiang Peng quickly brushed his teeth and washed his face, and the water rushed down his feet before leaving. "Ah. I took a martial arts class when I was in college, and my physical fitness was pretty good." Fang Huai's mouth twitched. Neurosis. Hao Qingbin waited until he blew the whistle and turned off the lights before coming back. The first sentence he said upon entering the door was, "Go to bed early, get up at 5 o'clock tomorrow morning, and teach you how to make blankets." A burst of mournful cries. Half an hour later, the room was exceptionally quiet, even quieter than when there were only 4 people yesterday. Everyone couldn't sleep, but they didn't speak. On the first day of joining the army, everyone felt homesick to some extent. Can't even sleep, right? Hao Qingbin's bed is located closest to the door, and Fang Huai can see him talking while texting. No one answered for half a day. Bang! Hao Qingbin lifted his leg and kicked the upper bunk bed board. Zhao Bing, a new recruit from Huaihua, sat up in the upper bunk. Class monitor. "What's wrong?" The wooden tone made laughter spread from the room. Hao Qingbin laughed and scolded, "What are you pretending to be? You're flipping around, you can't sleep if you can't chat for a while." Yuren said, "What are we talking about? Do you have a girlfriend?" Hao Qingbin knew that these children must be homesick and intentionally brought up the topic of a man. Sure enough, Yu Tao across from Hao Qingbin sat up excitedly. "Class monitor, I have it." Chen Zhongqiang loudly revealed, "You have a fart." "Little fart child, just bragging." Hao Qingbin shouted, "Aren't you a little brat? What are you pretending to be, an old toad?" "Ha ha ha." Chen Zhongqiang said speechlessly, "Class monitor, it's really not me pretending. I asked him a few days ago, and he would say that his girlfriend looks like Maggie Chung and Cecilia Chung. Look at him. He's as black as a refugee, not bragging, what is it?" Yu Tao said dejectedly, "Why am I ugly? Isn't it just that my lips are thicker and my skin is darker? My girlfriend says that's called sexiness." Hao Qingbin laughed heartily and said, "Haha. Yu Tao is quite ugly." There was another burst of laughter in the room. Everyone quickly talked about their girlfriends or favorite girls. "I like my middle school desk mate, and she also likes me quite a bit, but it's never been confirmed." Fart. Single love, right? Hao Qingbin retorted one after another. "Yes. If you have a girlfriend, take out the photo and take a look. Do you have a big sticker?" "I do." "You have a fart. You must have stolen someone else's." Haha. Fang Huai also smiled at the corners of his mouth, knowing that Hao Qingbin was providing psychological counseling to everyone and did not interrupt. But the topic quickly shifted to Fang Huai. Jiang Ping said, "Fang Huai, do you have many pretty girls in Chongqing? Do you have a girlfriend?" Now everyone stopped, and Hao Qingbin was also quite curious. He put down his phone and looked in the direction of Fang Huai. He always felt that this child looked cheerful, but he could quite hide things in his heart. After a while, Fang Huai said softly, "No, our Fang family is practicing the exorcism sword manual. There is no woman in our hearts, so drawing the sword is natural. On the first page of the sword manual, first slay our beloved." "Oh. So your mother was also beheaded by your father? Hao Qingbin retorted. Ha ha ha. Fang Huai rolled his eyes and said, class monitor. I was joking. This is called self-deprecating spirit. Hao Qingbin sat up and said, well, let me tell you something, I used to have a girlfriend, whom I met when I went to Monument to the People's Liberation in Chongqing. Wow, beautiful. If you don't have a girlfriend, let Fang Huai introduce you in the future. There are really many beautiful women in Chongqing. Yu Tao was aroused and his tone also flattered, brother Fang. Introduce someone. Don't you have a girlfriend? That girlfriend isn't really worth it. What does not calculate very well mean? Yu Tao suddenly felt a bit shy and answered. Zhaoshuyuan.com, I'm not very sure, she agreed or not. Anyway, her brother and I joined the army together, and I asked her, but she didn't say anything. Fang Huai was taken aback. Sleeping trough, isn't this special brother Yang? Thinking back, I actually had a crush on Yang Shaoqing for a while, but I didn't dare to take action. If I were to pursue Yang Shaoqing, even if I was rejected, it would be better than finding that Huang Jiaojiao. Unfortunately, by now, I am no longer interested in the love of those children, except for dopamine, which is a hormone that can be summarized as sexual impulses. Everyone was chatting passionately, and suddenly one person sat up in anger. Pengyin Kirui. He was the only one immersed in sleep, and when he woke up, he was quite angry and said, what time are you still chatting? Is it good to sleep? This guy is so ruthless that he silenced Hao Qingbin. Hao Qingbin couldn't find a reason to scold him for a long time, so he had no choice but to angrily say, sleep. Everyone's homesickness has also dissipated for the most part, probably realizing that in the army, a group of men boasting and chatting about the mountains are also quite enjoyable, each with some smiles falling asleep. They laughed early. The next day, the agreed 5 o'clock became 4.40, with the main focus on the unwavering loyalty of soldiers. Ju. Shu, shu, shu. The sound beads in the whistle collided wildly, and when a group of people got up, they were accompanied by intense excitement of the sympathetic nervous system and tachycardia. With a loud bang, the sky suddenly lit up, reflecting the evil smile of Hao Qingbin leaning against the door. Christmas Eve has passed. Hunting has begun.